Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about What If Hiruzen Trains Team 7 Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. 8 months after Orochimaru's treachery broke Konoha's walls, Sarutobi Hiruzen stood on Suna's battered main plaza, having returned the favor. The tiles under his feet were chipped. The fountain close to him missed half its structure, a deep gouge in the ground where the other half had been. For A and B guarded him as he walked up the stairs to the last dome-like building that had survived the siege. They shoved open the double-wing doors, waited for him to pass, then fell back into rank. For the upcoming event he had donned his red and white robes again, covering his armor where the blood wouldn't come off. His boots echoed as he strode toward the chamber at the other end of the hallway. His guards made no noise, but today Hiruzen wanted others to hear his approach. 2 E and B opened the last door, 3 more vanishing inside to check the room. The chamber was large and well lit. A tapestry hung to one side. From 2 braziers in front of it came faint smoke and the smell of incense. In the middle of the room stood a large table lined by flat cushions, one on his side for a cross. Hiruzen seated himself, then looked at the expressions meeting him: ashamed, angry, resigned, disinterested. "You lost," he said, putting his hat on the table. "Your village belongs to Konoha, as does a large part of Wind Country. The rebellious elements we still encounter in the southern reaches are negligible. In a few weeks they will have no resistance to offer anymore, and then Suna as a whole will cease to exist." One councilman looked up angrily. He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. "This whole thing is your fault, Sarutobi. It was a shinobi from Konoha who tricked us. Your student. You want to shove your responsibility onto us because you cannot rein in the monster of your own creation." The old woman left to the councilman shook her head, and the man to his right, bald and garbed in the traditional white robes of the Odaya priests, squeezed his shoulder. Hiruzen fixed the group with a hard stare. "You should remind yourself on which side of the table you sit. Orochimaru is of Konoha's making, but that does not exonerate you. It was you who listened to a sworn enemy of my people. You who broke down Konoha's walls, pillaging and spreading murder." "He is young," the old woman said, dipping her head, gray hair falling in her face. "Then make sure he learns fast, Giordano," Hiruzen said. "We will," the priest said. "See that you do." Hiruzen leaned forward, pushing with both elbows against the table, mouth a thin line. "If you cooperate with my terms, Konoha will not absorb Suna. It is one of the Great Five, and I have no intention of rewriting history to such an extent. Betray Konoha's trust once more, however, and I will return." He locked eyes with them. "Should that happen, I will raze this village to the ground." The advisors remained calm now. Just one of them seemed unfazed. The disinterested expression the man next to Chio wore struck a memory of when Hiruzen had first taken the Sannin to Suna. Jiraiya had found a bottle back then, filled with a liquid he thought alcohol. Hours later Jiraiya and Tsunade had told him that it felt like being enveloped in cotton, safe, and that not even an emotion like fear could reach you. The man exploded in a whirl of motion, double-edged kunai racing for Hiruzen's throat. "Jonin." Hiruzen slapped the kunai out of the man's hand. He reached forward, planting his palm on the head of the man before driving him brow first into the table. The wood gave in, and the face broke through toward the floor with the sound of wood stabbing flesh. His ANBU, swords drawn and pointed at the council, extracted the dead Jonin, and one left the chamber with the corpse. Hiruzen settled down again and looked across the table. "I hope this was as much a surprise to you as it was to me," he said. The angry councilman blanched, but it was a paleness born of general fear. He flinched when Hiruzen glanced at him. "He has nothing to do with this. The rebels can still reach Suna, then." "It did, Sarutobi Dano," the councilman said, lowering his head. "We knew Heki was displeased, but not to this extent. I also apologize for my earlier outburst. It was unbecoming of a member of this honored body." Hiruzen sat quietly, hands resting on the remnants of the table. The leader of the rebel forces was an old acquaintance, Sengoku Fushigi. Hiruzen had stood with and against him in multiple wars. The man was capable, a strong fighter, and even smarter tactician. Any other man Kakashi would have fooled, but meeting Sengoku back when he'd been spying on Suna's war preparations was plain bad luck. No, Konoha's position was far from secure as long as that man still commanded shinobi. The title rebel didn't make people who had been soldiers once any weaker. He nodded at last, and the councilman raised his head, color returning to his face. Hiruzen reached into his robes, pulling out a scroll and putting it on the table next to the hole. The edge of the scroll was specked with blood from his armor. "These are the terms for your surrender." Chio took the scroll, broke the seal and read, the councilman and the priest deferring to her. She looked up from the parchment. You will allow a new Kazekage to be put in place? Eventually, Hiruzen said. For now Suna remains under Konoha's jurisdiction. Once the region has stabilized and the conditions are met, Suna may elect a new Kazekage, one that also has the approval of Konoha. The priest frowned. That is a rather unusual practice. I have no intentions of breaking the tradition our forefathers left us, Hiruzen said. 5 great villages, no more, no less. But I will not risk the election of another Kazekage to whom my village is an enemy. This has been neither the first, nor the second time Suna has betrayed our alliance. Glancing at the sun shining through the high windows, Hiruzen rose from the cushion, letting his gaze swivel through the room as the ANBU assembled around him. This was Suna's last strike, honorable counselors. There won't be another. The last months should have proven beyond any doubt that Konoha wasn't built on empty promises. Of course, Hokage Dano, Chio said. Hiruzen didn't envy her position. He left them with those words and, turning away from them, the door falling shut behind him, found himself back on the plaza a minute later. The sun was warm and pressing, and the air thick with the stench of a war. A Chunin wearing a bandana appeared next to him. You have news, Izumo? Hiruzen said. Yes, Hokage-sama. Izumo leaned in closer and whispered a few words. Listening, Hiruzen closed his eyes, feeling the years in his bones. When he opened them again, the sun seemed much brighter, much harsher than before. Faster! The students ran and Naruto sat on a log watching them. They increased their pace, closing in on the wall, vaulting over it one after another, slowing down, deciding, then sliding through under the next obstacle. Naruto glanced at his stopwatch as they hauled themselves through an artificial swamp, building stairs at the end once they came on a wall too high to leap over. The course ended at the far side of the training ground behind Konoha's academy. The last part lay out of sight, but Naruto heard the dull sound of wooden kunai being deflected. Noise dying, the students came back into his field of vision, jogging along the beaten trail beside the course. 11 boys and 6 girls took up position in front of him. They assembled in 2 lines, cheeks red, knees shaking in their black slacks. Uniforms had become important for everyone save the few jonin who were known enough to be recognized on the battlefield. Naruto sported the same black, his green vest leaning against the trunk. Today was a hot day. He waited until the last boy had gathered his bearings. They wore miserable looks altogether. You know what comes next, he said. The students arranged themselves in a circle that left a 40-foot diameter between them. The last time they had protested was weeks past. They just looked resigned now. Naruto called 4 names. 3 boys and 1 girl stepped into the circle, eyeing each other. They were wary, the girl in a stance already, the boys following suit. They shifted their balance to scare each other, but the game was old. They had fought too often like this to be intimidated by the warm-up. Same rules, Naruto said. Taijutsu, no teams. He whistled and the 4 jumped forward, little whirlwinds of kicks and jabs. Fists were flying, most missing, some scoring a hit on accident. The girl stumbled into one of the boys and managed to ram her knee into his stomach. Naruto pulled the collapsing boy out of the ring, slapping the shoulder of a spectating student on the way back. You're next. Every 30 seconds he whistled and, one more student entering the fight, he kept watching their footwork. The wartime program proved to be hard fare for the kids, and Naruto still doubted that he was the right one for the job. But after the screw-up 7 months ago, he couldn't complain. Team 7 had gotten off easy in comparison to those who were actually tried for treason. The circle was a slugfest, all 17 students duking it out, shouting and moaning in pain. In between pulling out more injured, Naruto glanced at the large windows of the academy. Inside, Iruka was giving lessons on wartime regulations, setting ambushes, and staying alive. The theoretical parts had been cut heavily in favor of physical training. Iruka was one of the last instructors still giving them. The last good one anyway. I don't get why you make me do this, Gigi. He looked back to the circle. The girl was driving her knuckles into the face of another student, but then got clipped by a haymaker. The blow threw her to the ground and she rolled over twice before Naruto got to her. He put the girl next to the fallen tree that the other students were leaning against. Her lip was bleeding and Naruto chucked a small container of cheap salve at her. He whistled again and the students stopped in their tracks. That's enough. Settle down. We're almost done for today. Some sat down on the spot, others pulled themselves together and made it to the fallen tree before collapsing in panting heaps. Naruto sat back down on the tree stump across them, watching. He knew they hated him the same way he had hated Kakashi. Just that they were younger than he'd been and hated him more for it. They didn't understand the urgency, even when he told them the world was burning. And the sad truth was they wouldn't understand until getting licked themselves. Parents had complained twice already, and Naruto wanted to agree but couldn't. If the invasion had taught him anything, then that no enemy force gave you the courtesy of fighting one-on-one. Jonin would teach them teamwork when the time came. Until then they'd learn how to keep on their toes even after laying out an enemy, and how to stay alive against many when all you feel is confusion and fear. That's all I can teach them anyway. Haven't got much else. He was about to launch into a review of their footwork when a presence closed in. His hand went to his kunai holster, but the signature appearing belonged to a woman in Chunin garb. The kids grew talkative and excited at the new arrival. Naruto shot them a look that promised another 5 runs on the obstacle course. Stay here and keep it down. No fighting until I'm back. They nodded dutifully and he walked over to the Chunin. She was half a head taller than him. Pale features, brown hair. Muscular. Holster fixed to the leg and weapon pouch at the waist. He looked closer. Her vest had been modified by hand, hiding either weapons or steel plates. A problem? He asked. Just a message, she said, handing him a blue-lined scroll. Naruto skimmed it. Do Sasuke and Sakura know? Not yet. Don't bother, I'll tell them. Who'll be there? She looked uncomfortable. Everyone of note. That's serious. Then Naruto rolled up the scroll. Thanks anyway. I guess I'll see you there? The Chunin nodded, waved at the kids, then leaped onto the academy roof. From there she jumped to a large water tank, then out of sight and farther into the village. Naruto secured the scroll to his belt. His students were breathing normally now, talking quietly among themselves. Listen up, he said, coming back. I just got the news that this'll be my last day as your instructor. The relief in their expression wasn't unwarranted. Understanding that didn't make it sting less though. One last time, he told himself, crouching so he was on eye level with them. I'm leaving, he said. That doesn't mean your next teacher will be any easier on you. Trouble's coming fast. You need to be strong when it's here, you get me? I know you don't like this. I know it's unfair and hard and that you hurt each day. But you can't stop now. Keep training. Keep sparring. Even if it hurts and you want to lie down, keep running that course until you dream of it. That's the only way to get ready. That's the only way for you to stay alive. Nods all around, but Naruto knew they wouldn't understand, even if he told them 100 times. Take care now, he said, rising to full height. And if I learn you bothered your new teacher any, I'm coming back, hear me? You won't like it when I have to come back. They nodded again and Naruto smiled. It unsettled them. He hadn't had much to smile while preparing them. Clapping his hands he said, class dismissed, and watched them leave toward the academy building where they'd shower and change into their usual clothes. He'd wanted them to like him, a childish thought that hadn't survived reality. Steam shot out of the teapot and Sakura was quick to take it from the burner. She took a deep breath as she poured the chamomile tea in 2 cups standing on a tray beside her. Yes, that's it. Now only a spoon of sugar and we're there. You make one mean tea, Harino. Better than Ino anyway. Then again, she'd had enough practice by now. She took the tray to the flat table in the middle of the room, positing a cup on each side. The table was made of senju wood, dark-stained, polished, and worth a fortune. The same went for the whole room. It was the coziest prison cell she'd ever seen. Not that she'd seen many, but rumors told they usually were dingy, wet, and reeking of waste. But all the senju wood didn't surround her because it looked great, which it did. Rather, it helped the boy opposite of her keep control, as did a dozen stabilizing seals Jiraiya had plastered on his body months ago. Gaara took the cup and sipped at it, dignified and silent. He liked chamomile because it calmed him, or so he said. Sakura had no way to prove that by his facial expression he was much like Sasuke in that regard, but Gaara hadn't refused a single pot of tea since she started making it. That's as good a sign as any, she told herself. Gaara's hair was quite a bit longer than it had been when she first saw him. And Sakura was sure if circumstances were different, he'd have a lot of girls after him. The eyes made sure of that. First time Ino had hesitantly visited her during this assignment, she had to be kicked out eventually. Sakura hadn't shared in that enthusiasm. Contrary to Ino, she knew quite well who Gaara was and what he was capable of. Sure, he was beautiful in a way, but so were Naruto and Sasuke. No, she was more fascinated than enamored. Here was someone so like Naruto, yet nothing like him at all. She gave him another moment to drink his tea, took a sip of her own, then rummaged in her bag and pulled out a map. Careful, she said, nodding at his cup and unfurling the map. I borrowed this from the archives. No idea if they're valuable, but I'd rather not risk it. Geography again? I was under the impression we covered this field the last 8 times. The world's a big place. She politely refrained from laughing at the irritation that couldn't be seen but still went out from him in waves. This seems excessive, Sakura-san. She smiled. Learning always did. Naruto and Sasuke were much the same. Don't worry, she said. I planned something different for today. Wind Country, to be precise. I'd love to hear more about it. Gaara raised an eyebrow. Are you extracting information? In a sense, she said, laughing. You know how this goes. Feel free to tell me whatever you want. He began talking, his words chosen carefully, and Sakura listened, by now used to the surreal experience. Jiraiya's stabilizers in this room had done wonders for him. Months ago Gaara had for the first time a mind free of whispers and bloodlust. Surprising what miracles that worked for a person, really. Not that he blossomed or something quaint like that. But he had a voice that could calm you down and made you listen. When he got talking he wasn't half bad actually. You'd never know he's a Jinchuriki, Sakura thought listening. Just reserved, or a bit shy maybe. The voice would be a perfect fit for a good teacher, which made it quite sad that he had never received a formal education. She was a bit suspicious that the Hokage had immediately agreed to her remedying that issue. Back then the Hokage had barely given her enough time to finish presenting the idea before congratulating her, saying that education was the first step to a world beyond death. Well, at least she had something else to do than brewing tea since then. Boredom was good at times, but it was also bad, mostly when you had to spend the time with someone else who was probably equally bored. Gaara had, in any case, never said anything about liking her any more than the guards outside his room. But he was a private person, and she'd like to believe that he'd missed their shared lessons once she was called back to duty. He had just told her of the oasis of Ike and another city called Hajim at Wind Country's seaside. Then he stopped talking, drank his tea, and Sakura waited for him to continue. She knew of at least one other city in the area. The drug baron Asim, Kabuto the fake healer, and the prostitutes murdering bandits for white powder made it hard to forget the cesspit that was Boki Toshi. She hummed questioningly when Gaara didn't continue. That is all I know, he said. You've only been to 2 cities besides Suna? 1. I just recounted what I remember hearing of Ike. Ouch. But that's what I'm here for. She leaned over the table, fingertips tracing circles around the places he had named. His eyes were following her finger over the map, to the dot that marked Boki Toshi. This place is pretty rotten, she explained. At least if you're there at night. From what I heard they're trading a lot though, and they love their independence. There's been a few tries to make it more, let's say government-friendly, but that didn't really work all that well. Gaara leaned over the map as well, inspecting the dot and glancing at the symbols of marked resources nearby. Sakura had noticed this before. Gaara's lack of facial expression made it hard to tell, but he was interested in his home and all the things his father probably should have taught him. She followed his look up to the ports that were trading with Boki Toshi, and she imagined he was filing away the information in that magic way of his. He had a terrifying memory. It had scared the bejesus out of her when he had first recited every single name from the history book they had read a day earlier. Did you learn that at your academy? Gaara asked. God, no. Kiba and Naruto would have bailed the second Irika-sensei wrote it on the board. No, I've actually visited it a while ago. He looked up, surprised. You've been to Wine Country? Once. There's a lot of sand. There was a minuscule twitch in his left eyebrow. Sakura counted that as a victory. It's a desert, Gaara said. And deserts have a lot of sand, she said quite seriously. But does it have to be all sand? Couldn't there be, I don't know, some animals besides scorpions and snakes? Or a few palms. I've seen my first palms in river country. They're beautiful. Which makes it sound like I've lazed on the beach. Well, maybe I did. Naruto had to carry me, after all. There are plants in the desert, Gaara said. Sakura raised an eyebrow. I've seen none, but I guess you're the expert there. Been out to the desert often? Every day. And there really are plants? 2 large fields south of Suna. He pointed at an area on the map. Farther out there are more. What are they looking like? Green and purple. They're taller than people. Sakura was about to ask for the name when someone knocked at the door. Come in, she called out. Naruto entered the room, 3 containers with ramen in his hand. Hey there, hope I'm not interrupting. Naruto put the ramen on the table, seating himself right next to Gaara. Thank you, Naruto-san, Gaara said, reaching for the ramen, breaking apart the chopsticks and swirling the noodles inside the bowl. "It's Naruto, I told you. Now feast on this godly broth. Can't let the deity be waiting." "Jinchuriki," Sakura thought, shaking her head. "I wonder if they have a special, ramen-friendly metabolism." Shrugging and accepting that she might never know, Sakura turned to her own noodles. "Did something happen?" she asked Naruto between bites. "You should be teaching for another hour." Naruto, done already, pushed the container away and leaned back, sighing. "Sorry to say, but this might be the last you see of us for a while, Gaara. New orders came in." Naruto handed Sakura the scroll. "He's right," she murmured, reading. "We've new orders. I'm sorry, Gaara. You are active shinobi. I have no monopoly on your time." Naruto rolled his eyes. "That sounds so lame," he said. "Listen, we'll visit as often as we can. Jinchuriki have to stick together." Sakura doubted that Gaara believed Naruto. 6 months of good treatment and camaraderie didn't abolish a lifetime of hate and ignorance. That was nothing she could change right now, though. Or maybe it was. And maybe she already had. Gaara was always so frustrating to read. Eventually they had finished the ramen and got up, saying goodbye. Outside Gaara's room the guard looked as severe as ever. Operation Success were the magical words Sasuke had just stamped on a slew of documents. Turning back to Shizen, he skimmed the files while the woman kept talking nonstop to him and the other 3 medicnine. They were in her office at the hospital, neat place, everything structured, one plant that caught every eye as the only green object nearby. "Which is why we could reverse the damage from the lightning jutsu," Shizen said. "4 weeks of healing and his eyes will have fully recovered. He should spend that time in dark rooms, however. I don't want to expose him too early to sunlight." The 3 medicine did their best to look concurring. "I'll make sure he knows," Shizen-san, one said. The generous sacrifice for implicit favors later on. There was always one of those around. Sasuke finished reading and put the documents in order, filing them at the right places. This surgery brought nothing new to the table, but medical information on eyes was always high on the agenda after Naruto had revived him near Tanyu. He wasn't in the same pay grade as the 3 sheep gathered around Shizen, and usually he wouldn't get to see those files. Being hailed as the next medical prodigy had its perks, though, even if he wished it had never become necessary. He had lost count of how often Tsunade had been called in because he had used his Sharingan, thinking that the corrosive power of the Kyuubi would dissipate eventually, that his eyes were fine, as always, would be fine for a long time from that moment on. Each time she had told him that this wasn't the case, and that the chakra burned through the nerves connecting the eyes to the brain. Nothing would change that. Tsunade could repair the damage when she was nearby, but enabling him to use the Sharingan again? Out of question. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and one of the medicine twitched after looking at him. As if I'd ever accept an answer like that. The discussion in the office turned to another patient, one with an infected leg and a bad case of chakra depletion. "I'll head off," Sasuke said, already walking out the door, white coat sweeping behind him. He hated it. Though the last time he'd left the coat at home, not just Shizen but Tsunade as well had explained in no unclear terms why he needed it. "Uchiha-san!" Sasuke heard the call from the adjacent hallway and ducked around the next corner and into another corridor. He hated this too. Having earned his basic healing certificate in half a year when it took other people 6 times that long meant that he now had to help with patients. Hokage's order. Or rather Tsunade's order, with the explicit approval of the Hokage. One day he'll choke on his pipe. Buttoning up the coat, he hurried down the hallway. Healing his Sharingan was all he was here for. Nothing else. Certainly not dealing with grabby patients telling him their stories. He didn't care that Tsunade said it was impossible for him to reach his goal. Uchiha were far from normal people. For him impossible became improbable but in the realms of possibility. He was almost through the next door when the voice of another nurse came from beside him. She was small, but not bad looking. He liked the short black hair. What he didn't like was the aura of calm certainty around her, and that she got people to do their work. "Yes?" he asked. She pointed at a room at the far side of the hall. "There's a patient waiting for treatment, Uchiha-san. You still have 3 hours until your shift is over. After a moment, and please don't make us chase you all the time." Sasuke tried glaring his way out of the situation, but that hadn't worked the last few times either. She just kept looking at him, unyielding. 10 seconds later he gave her a curt nod and went over to the room. Inside, a middle-aged man, bald, with purple-black bruises and a deformed scar on his right arm, sat on the examination table. "Aren't you a bit young for this?" Sasuke pulled over a chair, took his seat, and let his green glowing hand wander over the bruises. Hey, aren't you listening? The chilling glare usually kept them silent. I mean, the man said, don't you want to know how I got this? For your diagnosis? HN. The healing process would be fairly quick. Nothing Sasuke couldn't handle due to a lack of experience. That had happened only once so far. He disliked thinking of it. I got this in a fight with a Nukenin. Dangerous guy, I say. Goes by knife in the bingo book huge bounty. Nearly laid him flat, ouch. The process could, at times, be a bit painful, however. That depended entirely on how skilled and willing the medic Nin was. Anyway, I guess you wouldn't understand how dangerous. The man cried out again and Sasuke continued healing. 3 minutes later the bruises were fading and the few cuts had been sealed. The man jumped up, shot Sasuke an angry look, and stormed out of the room. Smoothing the wrinkles out of his coat, Sasuke crossed his ankles, leaning back against the table. As long as no new patient came, he'd be able to camp here. Lucky that the sign outside would still show the room to be in use. The door opened. Sasuke tensed. Then Naruto and Sakura filed into the room and he relaxed again. Still loving your job? Naruto said. Sasuke pulled a scalpel from the tablet on the table and threw it at Naruto's face. Sakura picked it out of the air before it was even halfway through the room. That wasn't for you, Sasuke said, frowning. We've more important things to worry about right now. Sakura slid the scalpel under the right sleeve of her black slacks. New orders. Tell me I'm done here, Sasuke said. Sakura grinned. You're done here. Sasuke got up, unsealing his vest. First good news of the day. I wouldn't be so sure, Naruto said. Sasuke patted the pockets of his vest. Everything was at the right place. Mission in time? Today, Naruto said. Assembly. You know the place. We've been there before at the Chunin exams. Sasuke flung the coat carelessly over the examination table. The nurses could pick it up later. He popped his shoulders and neck, then made for the door, Naruto and Sakura following. Glad to be out, Sasuke said. Can't say I'm looking forward to the meeting though. I hear you, Sakura said. Hard to imagine something good coming from this. Do we still have time? Naruto asked. They were walking down the hallways, ignoring two nurses calling after Sasuke, moving through the foyer. Outside, Sakura shadowed her face against the sun. It's supposed to be at late afternoon, early evening. I'd say an hour or so. Home it is, Sasuke said. Count on it, Naruto said. I'm hungry. Sakura shook her head. You just ate with Gaara. Still hungry. As his teammates continued to bicker, Sasuke followed them onto the streets of Konoha. Food sounded like a good plan. The sun was already simmering orange-red at the horizon when Team 7 arrived in front of their home in South Konoha, coincidentally only a few feet away from where they had killed Kimimaro. Their new-built house fit right in with the other buildings that had shot up after the rubble of the battle was cleared. It was a simple one-story house bought with the funds from their mission to Wave and some extra money courtesy of the Uchiha treasury, and with enough room for 4 people and a small backyard. Only 3 of the available 4 rooms were in use though, and that more than anything saddened Sakura. From time to time she'd go in and water the 2 plants they had placed there as decoration, always also seeing the bed that hadn't been used since it was bought, a shelf empty of everything that made it seem like someone was living there. Chasing those thoughts away, Sakura went up the steps leading to the door. The room would be used eventually. She had no doubt of that. Sakura turned the key and ushered her teammates inside, Naruto immediately setting out for the pantries and rummaging for more ramen. Don't take too long, Sakura called after him, laughing. One day he'd eat himself to death. He'd die with a smile though. That's sure. A big, goofy smile and noodles hanging from his lips. Just have to find them, Naruto called back. Sasuke, efficient as always, already had the burner heating and the water boiling. He was far from a fan, but in this house you didn't go far without liking noodles and knowing the procedure of making them fast. Smiling, Sakura shrugged out of her vest, letting it fall carelessly to the ground, moving over to a large closet at the other end of the living room. She opened the closet and pushed her chakra into the seal Naruto had carved into the back, watching 2 stacks of scrolls pop into existence. What do you think we'll need? Sakura asked loudly so they could hear her in the kitchen. 3 months, Sasuke called back. Sakura nodded to herself. 3 months sounded good. She selected 3 scrolls from the left stack containing shuriken, kunai, more seals, and different weaponry. Then she did the same with the right. Those scrolls were for medical salves, bandages, and simple food rations. She had invented this system months ago, because if their rescue mission had driven one point home, it was that preparation paid off and not having what you needed sucked. Should they ever want to do stupid things again, at least they'd be prepared now. Moving back to the kitchen, the smell of spicy noodle broth heavy in the air, she lined up the scrolls on the kitchen table and settled down while Naruto played at being a professional ramen sommelier. "How's Kakashi-sensei today?" she asked Sasuke, who was staring at the large Uchiha fan she had painted on the wall across the table 3 months back. Hers and Naruto's symbols were in the living room. The wall in the bathroom was still free. "Same old," Sasuke said. "The poison's not easy to get rid of." "How long until he wakes up?" she asked. "It's been so long already." "Until Tsunade decides that he's healthy enough and the coma isn't necessary anymore." "She's frustrated." "As am I." Sakura glared at the table. "I'll gut that snake bastard when I see him next." "Take a number," Naruto said, sitting down eating his food. "But seriously, I'll lose my appetite if you keep talking about Orochimaru. Remember, house rules apply to you too, Sakura. You've already filled your one revenge talk per week quota when you complained about Ino yesterday." "True enough," she said, sighing and lowering her head on her arms. "Sasuke still got his, doesn't he?" "Surprisingly enough," Naruto said. "Technically he saved up 2 weeks. Erg." Sakura buried her head farther into her arms. When she looked up again, Sasuke was smirking at her. It was the kind of expression that made her want to grin and punch him at the same time. She stayed in her position, even as she sensed Sasuke leaving the table and then coming back a moment later. Naruto too went up and came back again. She didn't care though. The crook of her arm was comfortable. She felt her heartbeat slow down, and she needed that. For so many shinobi to be ordered to assemble at the same place couldn't mean anything good. Talking stupid with her teammates could only gloss over that fact for so long. Eventually the clock hanging above the wall broke out into a melody, and her head jerked up. Her eyes widened as she noticed how late it was. They had half an hour at most until the meeting. "We have to go," she said. Naruto wasn't even close to finished with his noodles. He also had a second cup boiling on the burner. Sasuke had unsealed his red armor and was putting it on. "Relax, Sakura, we've got plenty of time," Naruto said. She ignored him, concentrating on the problem she could fix. "Sasuke, the order said uniform appearance." Sasuke kept attaching his bracers. "We can't just ignore our orders," Sakura said. Naruto nodded, gesturing with his spoon at Sasuke. "She's right. Besides, we've been walking around in slacks and vests for the last 7 months. I won't leave on a mission without my armor." "Then seal it and take the scroll with you until we know what we're dealing with," Sakura said. It took another 5 minutes for them to get ready, and though chaotic, Sakura found that she preferred this mood to the scramble for survival they had gone through during their rescue mission. The place where the first task of the Chunin exams had been administered was one of the buildings in Konoha that had survived the invasion. The large sign fixed above the entrance still showed the engraved insignias of the various villages, though it hung askew now. 2 Chunin were manning the entrance, opening the gate after taking a look at the blue scroll. The short tunnel Team 7 passed through soon opened up into a large hall. Hundreds of shinobi were mingling in small groups. Genin crowded around Chunin or kept to themselves, while Chunin banded together. Only a few Jonin were observing the twitchy crowd from the corners. That didn't surprise Naruto though. Hokage had taken the best shinobi on his march west, only leaving an emergency contingent in Konoha. For months now the streets had grown emptier each day as the Hokage advanced his forces. "About 20 Jonin," Sasuke said, leaning against a support pillar. "More Genin than Chunin." "Thought as much," Naruto said. "This can't be all we've got left in Konoha. But I bet it's a big part." He sighed. "Here's to hoping this is worth all the trouble." "Not that it matters," Sakura said, patting her weapon pouch and the 2 scrolls dangling from her belt. "We go where we're deployed to." "Which leaves the question of where he's sending us." Naruto let his eyes wander over the assembled shinobi. "Most here are Genin and rank somewhere between total beginners and barely adequate. And there's far too few Chunin in comparison." Sasuke crossed his arms. "I met at least half of the Chunin at the hospital. They're weak. A few capable ones, but not enough to hold out against serious opposition. If the Hokage wants us to fight with them, he dealt us a bad hand." "Still an asshole, eh?" The question was followed by a harsh bark of laughter. Naruto turned and found Kiba walking up to them. Kiba's hair had grown even shaggier. His right earlobe was pierced by a sharp incisor, and the mark of blood Akamaru had left on his cheek back in the forest had become a tattoo. Still haven't showered? Sasuke replied. Well, fuck you too, Uchiha. Kiba laughed again and joined them at the support pillar, grinning through red-rimmed eyes. Much like the rest of the world, Naruto hadn't seen much of him over the last months. From what Naruto had learned talking to Hinata, Kiba had taken to grieving for Akamaru in solitude. He would train on his own during the day, and once the Inuzuka dogs greeted the moon, he went to the place where they had burned Akamaru. There he'd drink and tell stories to the wind until the sun came up again. Inuzuka took only one familiar in life. No one in his clan hindered him as he honored his deceased partner the only way he knew how. Here with the others? Naruto asked, clapping Kiba on the shoulder. Only me, Kiba said. Whatever they're planning, it's nothing a Hyuga heiress should be part of. That's what her clan said, so you can stop looking at me like that, Sakura. Aburain? Sasuke asked. No idea. We don't see each other often anymore, Kiba said. He's got his own problems, I'd wager. Last I heard, they still classified him as a reserve because of his arm or lack of it. Naruto shook his head. He'd be a lot better than most folks here. A group of genin nearby heard him and shot him angry looks. He stared back, but before one of them could get too brave, a light shone on the podium at the other end of the hall. 4 people ascended the short stairs. Naruto had met all of them before, except the old, bandaged man. Front and center stood Tsunade, the person responsible for Kakashi and who was also acting as the interim Hokage while Gigi was out and about, raising cities and taking names. Contact with her had been limited so far, but he hadn't heard too many bad things. Just that she forced Sasuke into wearing a coat, which was more of a bonus, really. The 2 advisors shuffled on stage behind her. Naruto hadn't talked much with the man, but the old crone had given them their promotion back then. She had also almost skewered Sasuke because the Uchiha sported a superiority complex taller than Tanyu's walls. Joy, Sakura mumbled. With our luck we'll be led by those 2 corpses. Sure, Naruto poked her side. I'm sure they're capable. Remember what she did to Sasuke? I won't forget that anytime soon. Once I have my eyes under control again you will, Sasuke said. He didn't sound too amused. From the stage came a boom, interrupting them. Tsunade had sunken her heel into the wooden dais, and was now pulling it out slowly. Even that far-away Naruto could see her eyes blazing with anger. He stiffened up, as did his teammates, and most other shinobi in the hall. They took an attentive position as Tsunade began talking, just like Kakashi had drilled it into them. 8 hours ago the territory around Takigakure was attacked by a force numbering in the thousands. At the same time Kusa, a long-standing ally, opened its borders for another army to fling itself against Fire Country. For now the attack was successfully repelled by Jiraiya of the Sannin, who kept the invading forces at bay at the Hinkua River. The silence following her statement blanketed the whole hall. Naruto chanced a glance at Sakura and saw that she had paled, her hands slightly shaking. The news had been expected. Not the particulars, of course. But that war stood written in the future history of the elemental nations had seemed inevitable for the longest time now. Naruto tried to calm himself, but even having known that this would happen eventually he didn't manage. His heart still beat faster, and he felt his palms grow sweaty. Most of you will have guessed already who challenged us so openly, Tsunade said. Inoki the fence-sitter has decided to take a stance, and behind him stands all of Earth Country. From this day onward we are, once more, officially at war with IWA. Before the hall could explode in a cacophony of voices, Tsunade continued calmer now, arms crossed behind her back. This does not mean that you will be deployed toward the border. There has always been a possibility that IWA would seize this opportunity. The Hokage and his council, Tsunade gestured at the 3 people behind her, have put plans in motion should Inoki's nature reveal itself. Effective immediately, Hokage-sama and his troops will march to defend our borders and support our allies in Takigakure. In the meanwhile, however, all of you will be deployed to Suna under the command of Counselor Danzo. There you will quell the last dissenters that still resist Konoha's terms. Danzo stepped forward, breaking the momentary silence each time his cane met the wooden floor. Coming up next to Tsunade, he let his gaze wander over the crowd before him. Naruto found he took his sweet time looking at them. When the silence started to become uncomfortable, Danzo spoke at last. The tree can grow everywhere, he said. Then, we march at sunrise. Be ready to draw blood. A day after the message of Inoki's attack had reached him, Hiruzen was already past the closed-up borders of AIM and neared the Hinkua River. His army, the best Konoha had to offer, moved under the command of Nara Shikaku and was lagging 2 days behind. They would march for hours but also rest at night, before once more moving toward the enemy. Quite unlike Hiruzen himself. An army too exhausted to fight was no army at all. He, however, had the stamina necessary to cross the whole continent and still be able to fight if he wished to. His troops would catch up sooner or later. Rain was battering his helmet as he crossed the small body of water that fed into the Hinkawa River. In the distance he already saw the signs of war, swaths of ebony grasping at the clouds, twisting and merging into them, screams of the dying, the silence of the dead, all that in the backdrop of explosions occurring so fast and so often his ears started ringing and he wasn't even there yet. Jets of fire shot skyward, burning through the thick foliage miles ahead of him. Then came the waves called from the river around which the battle was being fought. Hiruzen increased his pace and weaved through seals, obscuring himself from view. In the actual combat zone it was better to pass unnoticed until he reached Jiraiya. It took another half an hour until he came upon the camp that served as Konoha's base of operations. It lay 2 miles away from the river and was wedged between 2 smaller streams. Tents sprawled from one palisade-fortified riverbank to the next. Dispelling the illusion, Hiruzen walked up to the guard at the gate. After a quick verification, the Jonin led him through the city of tarpaulins, toward the command tent where Jiraiya would be. They walked along a muddy path, and between the tents many resting shinobi stared at him as he passed, sketching as much a bow as their injuries allowed. From one tent came the smell of copper, pus, and waste. 2 corners farther he smelled soup. Moaning and shouting in one part, rough laughter in the next. Hiruzen pulled his helmet deeper into his face. The few years had been far too short a time for peace. "I will find my way from here," he said once the command tent was up ahead. The Jonin bowed and vanished back into the maze of cloth around them. Hiruzen rounded the last bend, and then he saw it, on a jutsu-induced elevation, a large circle of wooden posts held up enough fabric to clothe every woman in the daimyo's court for years. Some feet away from the entrance sat the mast with Konoha's flag, and on the free perimeter around the tent soldiers stood at attention, searching for unwanted intruders, their long spears piercing the smoke that came from the braziers beside them. Hiruzen felt his facial muscles tighten. This was no shinobi foothold. These weren't even shinobi standing beside his flag. Each soldier wore a breastplate engraved with the daimyo's sigil, and the farther Hiruzen extended his senses, the quicker the unsettling feeling in his stomach expanded. The camp was huge, larger than any shinobi camp should be, certainly larger than it had looked, and mingling with the large chakra signatures of his shinobi were hundreds of other, much smaller signatures. There was an army in Jiraiya's stronghold. One that didn't belong. Hiruzen strode up to the monstrosity of a tent ahead. The soldiers tried blocking his path, but a glare and a substantial amount of released chakra left them fumbling for their weapons as he went past. He was met halfway to the entrance by Tenzo, who walked out of the tent at a brisk pace. Tenzo looked tired, the circles under his eyes much more pronounced than usual. His vest was ripped in a few places where metal plating shone through. Around his left arm was a blood-crusted bandage. "Hokage-sama," Tenzo said. "It's good to see you in good health." He looked at the solders that were eyeing them. "I am sure you have questions. Explain to me why soldiers bearing the Fire Daimyo's sigil are camping with us." Tenzo stood a bit straighter, all business. Iwa's attack was accompanied by a large part of the Earth Daimyo's forces. Even with Jiraiya-sama's help we would have lost the battle had it not been for the company of soldiers stationed nearby. Jiraiya-sama called for their help, and now they are here with us while messengers informed the daimyo of this new development. In one sweep the unsettling feeling became something tangible. "The Earth Daimyo has involved himself?" Hiruzen asked. "It appears that way," Tenzo said. The Mashinam Treaty, signed and ratified by the daimyos and Kage after the First Great Shinobi War, signified a division of shinobi and normal troops in matters of war. The cost of lives had been catastrophic back when the idea first came up, and conflicts had, at times, depopulated large swaths of land after shinobi involved themselves. Aside from a few simple assassinations, the hidden villages kept out of the daimyo's business in large-scale wars, and vice versa. During the invasion, Orochimaru had struck the first blow against the treaty. Now Inoki followed suit. Had those two been working together from the start then? Or was it a coincidence? Hiruzen shook his head as his mind paced through the options. There existed no coincidences like this. But that Orochimaru was truly the catalyst for Inoki's decision wasn't clear either. Hiruzen's spies would have informed him had there been any kind of connection between them. It was much likelier that Inoki just saw his chance, and wanted to make sure that this time he wasn't going to be defeated by Konoha. "We sent messengers to Suna and Konoha," Tenzo said. "They should have reached you, Hokage-sama." "I was traveling alone," Hiruzen said. "Shikaka will be here in a day or two. Until then we keep the soldiers around. Is Jiraiya here?" "Jiraiya-sama hasn't left the front lines since the attack begun. The usual rotations are in place, but so far he has opted out each time. A brief moment of silence, then, he's giving them one hell of a beating, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded. I wouldn't expect any less. Who's inside that command tent? General Akibar, Tenzo said, exasperation bleeding into his voice. He is the commander of the daimyo's forces in the north of Fire Country. A title he makes you hear quite often, I assume. Hiruzen lowered his voice so the soldiers couldn't hear them. These generals are usually quite pompous. Will you meet him? Tenzo asked. There is no time for that, Hiruzen said. I need to speak with Jiraiya. From now until Shikaku arrives you will be in command. What about Jiraiya-sama? His services are needed elsewhere. Tenzo accepted the order without further questioning. He bowed and Hiruzen left the camp. From the outer gate of the camp Hiruzen set out toward the Hinkawa River. Too much time had been lost accomplishing nothing so far, and the reason he needed Jiraiya in the first place was a time-sensitive issue. Increasing his pace he hurtled past the trees. Now that he closed in on the actual front lines the magnitude of Iwa's attack became more apparent. The sounds of clashing metal vibrated in the air. Technique after technique, ripples of chakra reached his senses. Hiruzen continued at full speed. Wounded soldiers passed by, soldiers to whom he would look like nothing but a gray and white blur. With leap he cleared the tree line and landed in a crouch. Corpses were strewn all along the riverbank. Some floated in the water, others found themselves in a state of in-between, the currents snatching at them while shrubbery and branches kept them back. On the river and the shore shinobi and soldiers from both sides clashed in a mess of blood and violence. For a moment Hiruzen's breath hitched. The second passed and the brief nostalgia washed off him. Jiraiya wasn't there, and the Konoha shinobi were being forced away from the riverbank and into the forest. Until Shikaku arrived Iwa's numerical advantage would make holding this position difficult. Hiruzen wished to help his men, but finding Jiraiya came first. He sighed and moved on. This was but one side of a battlefield spanning miles, after all. He sped from site to site, shooting random techniques into the enemy rows as he passed. This was all the help he could give right now, and at the seventh larger battle place miles away from the camp and dominated by IWA he found his student. Jiraiya was squatting amidst foes, raging against the tides of incoming shinobi and soldiers. His elongated hair became a trap for everyone close by. Scattered around him were 3 wounded battle toads following his example, and behind him flames were licking at the surface of an enormous swamp. There was no Konoha besides Jiraiya left, though this area of the river was lost. Hiruzen glared at the masses of IWA Nins surrounding Jiraiya. For now they could have this victory. Inoki could feast on the knowledge that his troops took territory directly from under the feet of a Sannin, but once Shikaku arrived the tides would turn. It would become a long and cruel slog, but Konoha wouldn't be the one to perish in this crucible. His doubts resolved, he sent a pulse of chakra through the ground. He leaped, throwing every kunai in his holster at the IWA Nin around Jiraiya, and began weaving through hand seals. Attuned to Hiruzen's chakra, Jiraiya reacted. He threw himself to the ground, covering his back with a thick coat of hair. The kunai multiplied and tore through the air above him. Most IWA Nin managed to dodge in time, but by then Hiruzen was already beside Jiraiya, leaving with him before anyone had a chance to react. The Shunshin took both of them away from the battle, to a large branch. Jiraiya's hair shortened to its normal length. Not that I'm not glad to see you, Jiraiya said, face red, breath going heavy, but I had things under control. You were the last one. Jiraiya seemed surprised by that. I was. He popped his neck. Well, as I said, I had it under control. No sweat, old man. Now let's get back down there and kick them back to IWA. You did good, Jiraiya. You're making me blush. But I need you elsewhere. Jiraiya blinked. Then his face hardened. Have you seen what's happening, old man? They're overrunning us. If I leave now, they'll be in Konoha in a few days tops. They will drive us back only momentarily, Hiruzen said. You should know by now that the tree will never be uprooted. Not when we don't allow it to. Jiraiya snorted in disdain. That's some pretty talk, sensei. But let's stay with your image there. This is one earthquake we won't survive if you take away the biggest root keeping the tree in place. Shikaku is coming. They will have to hold out for that long. Well, Jiraiya said, why can't we hold out with them then? I've seen dozens of our shinobi die in the last hours. If we go now, there might not be anything left for Shikaku to find. That's no good, sensei. And that's the problem, isn't it, Jiraiya? Too much death that came far too soon. But I've no time to argue with you now. Your mission is more important than this front line. You'll accompany me to our new destination, Jiraiya. That's an order. Jiraiya's eyes widened. Then he angrily wiped the blood off his face. As you wish, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded curtly and began moving northeast. It had been more than 30 years since he last issued a direct command to his student. Usually they understood each other, one offering hints, the other acting on them. Not today, it seemed. Have faith in Konoha, Jiraiya. She has yet to fail us. As the sand particles stopped obscuring the horizon and laid bare the first sign of Suna, Sakura's heart jumped. Then the dune she was walking on curved downward, and the view ahead vanished again behind a mountain of ochre. Clad in the same green and black uniform as every other shinobi around her, she couldn't be more than a grain of sand in the army. Danzo led to the heart of Wind Country. She wasn't sure if she liked it, but the thought of so many shinobi behind her was comforting in a sense. 7 months ago she'd have liked to have all of them with her. Beside her, Naruto filled Sasuke's flask with the water jutsu. Sasuke thanked him with a clipped nod, then guzzled the water down. He pressed on them from above. They were in the upper end of the army. Is it that much harder? Sakura asked Naruto. He was frowning at the half-filled flask in Sasuke's hand. It's definitely not easier, Naruto said. I understand that I need more chakra in a place like this, but it's also control. Or something else I'm not getting. He craned his neck to glare at the sun. River country was easier. I didn't have to deal with this then. You had mosquitoes there, Sasuke said. Desert's way worse, Naruto said. I can kill the little buggers. He swiped at an imaginary mosquito, but I dare you to try and kill all this sand. To make his point, he stamped on the ground, sending up a spray of dust. Sand isn't alive, Sasuke said. Of course you can't kill it. Exactly my point, thanks for making it. There was a short lull of silence as the long worm that was Konoha's army winded farther along the dunes towards Suna. For a moment Sakura wondered whether Sasuke would leave it at that, then she saw him crouch down and pick up a handful of sand. She didn't know what he planned to do with it as he presented it to Naruto in his cupped palms, but she knew whatever it was, he was staying true to himself. Naruto narrowed his eyes. You brought me more sand. Either you want me to hate you, or you think I'm some kind of desert god and this is supposed to be an offering, which is still insulting because it's fucking sand. Sakura bit her lip to keep from laughing, thankful though for Sasuke's attempt to cheer up Naruto. She remembered the first and last time she'd seen Naruto completely pissed. They'd all been frightfully drunk, and he had told them how he still wanted to become the Hokage, how control was the most important part to him. Not control of others, but of himself. And if the hat provided him with an illusion that made him believe he was in control, then he'd hold out against his burden. It's always been about belief in himself. At least he could still do some things with water. Not much, but having it rendered completely ineffectual would have been far worse. Immense heat washed over Sakura. She found the source in Sasuke's palms. Chunin nearby were turning their heads and Sakura positioned herself so that they didn't have a good view on him. Heat wasn't well liked around here, certainly not among shinobi who had been marching for some time now. Turning back, she flinched as the waves of heat slammed into her face. Inside Sasuke's palms, flames were swallowing up all the sand. They licked at his fingers, threatening to break out. He was keeping them contained though, the orange red of the fire changing to a violet white. It began turning blue, heat rising even higher, and Sasuke was staring into the flames with a sort of manic concentration. Sakura kicked his shin. Sasuke's head jerked up, the fire dying out. What the hell? She whispered. It was the most eloquent she could be while also smiling at the suspicious shinobi looking their way. You're such an attention whore, Naruto told him, not bothering to keep his voice low. Unbelievable. It wasn't for attention, Sasuke said. Did it work at least? Sakura asked. Work? Naruto slowed his walk. What worked? There was the barest hint of a twitch at the Sasuke's lips. It spoke of restrained mirth, a fair bit of superiority, and also immeasurable quantities of condescension not aiming to hurt. Sasuke opened his palms, showing them to Naruto. The sand was gone. In its place lay a misshapen ball of glass. An offering to the desert god, Sasuke said, putting the piece of glass in Naruto's hand, then increasing his pace again. May your reign be long and prosperous, Sakura added. You have far too much time on your hands, Naruto said. Sakura clapped Naruto's shoulder as she went past him, catching up to Sasuke. Looks like Sasuke can kill sand. She couldn't see his face, but she could imagine it. That's not fair, Naruto said, coming up beside her. He cheated. You can't kill sand, those were his own damn words. Sasuke grunted. Get over it. They had passed many of the other groups around them, and were walking among the vanguard. Counselor Danzo wasn't far away. If Sakura strained her eyes, she could see him leading the procession. Much as his general presence discomfited her for reasons she couldn't quite name, Danzo didn't hide behind his army. He was the tip of the spear, no shinobi in front of or beside him. How a crippled man could move that fast was another matter altogether. With some effort, Team 7 won the uphill battle against another dune. Arriving on the apex of the dune's ridge, Sakura joined her teammates, and her breath caught. Before her lay the Valley of Dust. On the horizon, behind the valley, the sweeping mountains enclosed Suna, making the village look like a clump of sand clutched in the hand of a brown giant. She let her gaze sweep over the valley and the hidden village, thinking that it must have been beautiful once, before Konoha. The two towers around the main gate were heaps of rubble, having collapsed under the assault, their remains blocking the usual way into the village. Far left of the gate, half a mile away from Suna's defensive structures, a malformed wall stood tall like a dark monument. Curious what it's for, she narrowed her eyes and saw that it was made of massive black shards. "What the hell is that?" Naruto asked. "I've no idea," Sakura said. "Sasuke?" "We'll find out soon enough," Sasuke said. By now the stragglers of the army were arriving at the last dune. Danzo exchanged words with a shinobi beside him. Sakura looked closer and saw that it was Kotetsu, bandage across the nose and spiky black hair fanning out to his shoulders. He unsealed his mace and dislodged a large conch head. He blew into the shell. The horn sounded twice on a harsh and deep note, once to set the army in motion again, a second time, much longer, to alert the Konoha shinobi inside Suna and all of the village's citizens that they were coming. Among the first groups, Team 7 began their descent down the dune. "That's pretty badass," Naruto said. "We're shinobi," Sasuke said. "Announcing ourselves is the opposite of what we do." Sakura nodded. Every teacher, from Iruka to Kakashi to Jiraiya, had drilled them in approaching their targets through stealth. She looked at the back of Counselor Danzo, who was walking a few paces in front of them. "He's confident at least," Sakura murmured. "He better be," Naruto said. "But he's not half bad. Haven't you noticed that we're all wearing the same?" "Hard not to," Sasuke said. Frowning, Sakura looked at the uniform black slacks and the dark green vests around them. "Black and green, the lot of them. We look the same," she said, glancing at her vest. "But we're not, are we?" Naruto nudged her shoulder, nodding at Kiba, who was walking a few groups to the side. "We're Chunin," he said, thumping his vest, "but what about Kiba? He's still a genin. Look at him. He's like a botched henge where everything but the head fits." "If we're not in the bingo book, Suna doesn't know how we're ranked," Sasuke said. "So," Sakura said, "for all they know this isn't a bunch of reserves, but a full-fledged army of competent Chunin." Naruto nodded sagely. "Can't make it all Jonin, who'd believe that anyway? But Chunin is easy to swallow. Konoha's the strongest of the five. They could always pull something like that out of their ass. And this army," Naruto made a sweeping gesture with his hand, "isn't hiding, because how would we even hide it in an open field? Jonin might be able to, but us?" "You're making sense," Sasuke said. He sounded surprised. Then he began massaging his forehead. "I'm getting a headache trying to reconcile your words with who you are." Naruto flipped him off, laughing. "Fuck you too, asshole. But anyway, that's my point. This whole thing is an exercise in what do you call it?" "Subterfuge," Sakura offered. "Right. This whole thing is an exercise in subterfuge. Might as well shout it to the world, we're strong. We don't need to hide." Naruto pounded his chest twice. Nothing to lose by blowing that giant shell. While Naruto finished his explanation, the army was passing the large wall Sakura had dubbed a monument earlier, and shortly after arrived in front of Suna, where the extent of Konoha's attack became even more apparent. From the right side of the impassable gate, up to the mountains that served as a natural border, only bits and pieces of the wall had been left standing, looking like spikes growing out of the sand. Scores of tents had been wedged between the large breaches that Konoha had punched into the wall, expanding from there outward into the valley. Danzo led the army alongside the destroyed wall and toward the entrance of this village of tents where, at each pole, Konoha's sigil danced in the wind. Sakura only got a short glimpse through the gaps in the wall, seeing the ruins of the houses immediately next to it. Then she was ushered forward by her teammates, who themselves had been urged on by the shinobi behind them. "Let's get a bit closer," she said. They slipped through the rows, muttering apologies to the people they shoved aside, until they were so far in front they could hear and see Danzo clearly. As the counselor neared the village, a stream of shinobi 50, 60 at most left it, and took formation in an orderly fashion. Sakura recognized a few of them as experienced Chunin she had seen in Konoha, but also saw a substantial amount of Jonin vests. One Jonin stepped out of the formation to meet Danzo. He was tall, had short cropped hair and straight shoulders. "Right on time, Counselor Danzo," he said. "The command is yours." "Nara Hideki," Danzo said. "Hiruzen made a good choice. Will your men belong to my command?" "Afraid not, Counselor. Once you're settled in, we are to catch up with the main forces. Nara-sen wants us with the bulk of the troops as soon as possible." "How much of the original force will remain here?" Hideki handed Danzo a red-lined scroll. "You'll find detailed information in there. The current situation isn't too bad." Sakura thought that Danzo seemed almost wistful as he stared at the group of Jonin. Then he thumped his cane on the ground. "Consider us settled in, Nara-san. The tree thanks you for your service." "May it grow stronger each day," Hideki said. Then he whistled, and the group of veterans moved out toward the desert. For hours Jiraiya had followed Hiruzen at a pace that would break most shinobi. Their way had led them through the northern parts of Fire Country, right up to the land of hot springs. Now they were past even that stretch of land, having left the forest behind, finding their way to the shore of the Heron Bay. More than their rushed departure from the battlefield, it was this destination that convinced Jiraiya the old man had some big plans up his sleeves. Like his godson, Jiraiya had slept through most of the geography parts in the academy, but close to 40 years of traveling the world had given him enough experience to recognize certain areas and thus future trouble when it came knocking at his door. Jiraiya stood on the beach, water lapping at his feet, the air tasting of salt. Seagulls circled overhead, bigger and far more aggressive than Fire Country's. To the north, at the farthest reach of the Heron Bay, silhouettes of large towers were visible. Overcast by thick, rolling clouds and surrounded by light fog, they were the specters of protection that lined the coast of Lightning Country. Equidistant, if he were to look past the small islands scattered in the south of the bay, he'd see the Kaizoka's sea, domain of Water Country. "I don't like this, old man. I don't like this at all." They watched the waves for a minute, both silent. Miles away a catamaran was drifting on the water. People small as dots moved about on top of it. They were a patrol to keep bandits from fixing the cliffs with oil lamps and luring traders to their death once the fog grew thicker again. He'd very much like to be on that ship now. The islands farther down had incredible sake and even better women. "Tell me what you want from me," Jiraiya said, watching the catamaran grow smaller as it turned away. "Can't you guess?" Jiraiya broke his gaze away from the patrol. "I want to hear it from you. No one but the Hokage can give me this order. If you think I'll do this on a guess, well, think again." "If that is your wish," Hiruzen said, "infiltrate them and make sure they are looking at each other more than at us." "They do that already," Jiraiya said. "Their relationship is almost as strained as ours with IWA. And we're at war with IWA." "Don't make me do it, old man," Jiraiya thought. He felt a tendril of anxiety wind through his body, because for all his idealism he knew he wouldn't deny his Hokage. That when the chips were down he'd stand with Konoha, despite all his misgivings. "Please, not again. There must be another way." "Is it really?" Hiruzen said. "Or is it a ruse and both are waiting to swallow us whole when we're at our weakest? I don't know which of those options is the truth, Jiraiya. But I know that should even one of them decide to get involved in this war and fighting on a side not ours, we will lose." "It's just a hypothetical," Jiraiya said. "You're getting too paranoid." He tried to smile but couldn't. It was a falsehood and both knew it. The last war had demanded for a similar mission, and Jiraiya had advanced the same argument back then. But the old man hadn't been too paranoid. The threat had been quite real. Jiraiya continued, "Are you sure about this? Only 2 of the Great 5 are at war right now. Suna's already broken. If I do this, chances are the other 2 will get involved. They haven't even done anything yet. Can you stomach that?" "It's not a matter of being sure, Jiraiya." Hiruzen's face was lined with age. He looked at the sea, hands crossed behind his back. "There is nothing I am not willing to stomach for the village. If that is what you're asking." "Wouldn't a few incidents be enough? Just adding a bit of tension so they keep suspecting each other." "They already are suspicious of each other. The only way to make sure they keep away from us while we're fighting IWA is to make sure that they have to fight their own wars." "So that's my order?" "That is your order." "Brokering war, then," Jiraiya said darkly. "For how long?" Hiruzen turned to Jiraiya, wearing a look Jiraiya had learned to hate. Somber yet pitying. At the same time wishing to do better by his student, but also staying hard and unyielding no matter the argument. The face of a Hokage that only showed itself during wartime. Each time, when peace had come, Jiraiya would forget about it, Because the old man made it so easy to forget. Until the next war came rolling around, that was. They must not reconcile before we are victorious, Hiruzen said. You're talking years. What about my network? What about them? They're coming, and soon. You've talked with Itachi, damn it. Do you honestly think they'll sit still with all this going on? Don't you think I know that? Hiruzen said. Do you think I want you on this mission? If someone else could do it, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But there is only you, Jiraiya. I have no other shinobi with the abilities to fool not one but two nations at once. I wish it weren't so, but I can't change reality. Jiraiya listened, but there was an odd buzz in his head. He knew he'd do it. He knew it and felt revulsion. It didn't matter how frustrated the old man sounded. He'd do it, but actions like this were exactly the reason why he'd left Konoha to wander the world. Being the old man's student had long since become a burden. Mechanically, he unsealed an empty scroll and scribbled quick notes onto it. Here, he said, throwing Hiruzen the scroll. Give this to Inoichi. He'll know what to do. Hiruzen caught the scroll. I'm sorry, Jiraiya. Jiraiya popped his neck and turned to walk away. No sweat. It's what I'm here for, right? Pity that Orochimaru's isn't with us anymore. This be the perfect mission for him. He's always been good at creating chaos. Jiraiya. Once more, Jiraiya told himself, insides clenching. Once more, and maybe this would be the last time. See you later, old man. Make sure my godson stays safe. The beaker hit the crate with a dull noise. When a tan hand lifted the beaker, Naruto's focus sharpened. Then the dice became visible in the sunlight, the spell broke, and he groaned. 3 shinobi around him did the same. 2 6s, a 12 pay up, suckers! The woman sitting on the upturned barrel opposite of Naruto slapped the crate with her palm. 3 towers of stacked coins collapsed in the middle. Shooting the round a triumphant look, she leaned forward to collect her reward, and Naruto's eyes were drawn to something else entirely. She was a pretty lady. Tan skin, green eyes, short black hair. She made losing somewhat bearable. Someday I'll find out how you're doing this, Naruto said. The Chunin right next to him took a swig from his flask and threw an arm around Naruto's shoulder. They all stunk of sweat, some more than others. He stunk of booze too, though. Give it up, the man said. She's got the devil on her side. I wouldn't say devil, the woman said, grinning. You're just not good enough. You'll lose eventually. We'll see. Then the shinobi began calling out their numbers again, stacking new coins in the middle. Uzumaki, the woman said. Stop sleeping. What's your number? I'm out for today, Naruto said, standing up. He played enough for one day. Cards weren't the problem, but dice brought him no luck. They never fell the way he wanted them to, and Team 7's patrol would start soon anyway. Scared? The woman said. Well, can't fault you for that. It's the sensible decision. If I were you, I'd run too. She waved her hand airily. You just can't stand against the goddess of dice. Please, Naruto said, one win doesn't make you a god. It makes me better than you, though. Laughing, Naruto walked out of the circle around the crate. Going by, he picked up some sand and sprinkled it over her hair. Uzumaki. He was already around the corner and near the smith's tent when the laughter of the men grew quieter and began mixing with the sound of hammers hitting anvils, barking dogs, and the chatter an army this size produced. 8 weeks and counting they had been stationed in and around Suna now, while Danzo tried to get an overview of the situation and planned out his moves. That's the word going around campfires, at least. The bulk of the troops wouldn't set out any time soon, not until the resistance's position had been identified, and Senyaku, the man that had led Suna during the invasion, proved to be quite an obstacle, even after the village's unconditional surrender. The 2 months had gone by in a languid fashion. The workload was light, and as long as Danzo didn't emerge from his endless meetings with other leading officials, nothing save an attack would change that. Things were good though. Not perfect, but they never were. Most of the shinobi here were genin, and many of them had fought right beside Team 7 during the invasion, or had heard of them at least. He loved his team, but it was refreshing to know that they weren't the only people in the camp that liked him. Reaching a green tent, the fabric rolled up on one side, Naruto found Sasuke sitting on a 3-legged stool, lazily checking off something on a chart. Sasuke noticed him and said, "Give me a second," before turning to the man on the cot beside him, hands green. "You've no health problems," Sasuke said after a while. "Find someone else to bother." "Listen, you little shit," the man seized Sasuke's white coat. "I'll tell your damn supervisor if you don't treat me right now. I'm sick. Don't believe me? Well, watch out. This'll be your last time here. Sasuke slapped the hands from his coat and glared back. Get out. The man rose with a groan and some fake effort. Naruto suppressed his laughter when Sasuke rolled his eyes. He looked annoyed enough to help the guy leave with a kick to the head. 5 seconds of more grumbling, then the man was gone. Can he do that? Naruto said. Telling our supervisor. Sasuke shrugged. Probably. He's not going to. It's been his 3rd time here. He came back after 2 failures? Sasuke slid out of his coat and took his vest from the rack at the far side of the tent. I gave him a sick note the last 2 times. Couldn't be bothered to deal with him? Naruto laughed. Then why the fuss now? He's even more of a moron than you. If he calls in sick that often, he's making people suspicious. I'll let that comment slide in favor of laughing at you for getting roped into this in the first place. I still owe Sakura for that. She just gave a fair assessment of our abilities. I'm the only one saddled with more work. Sasuke checked off a box on a chart hammered to a post, then they left the tent. Maybe you'll get lucky and the guy reports you, Naruto said. Sasuke arched an eyebrow. Lucky? If you're doing a shit job, they might kick you out. You wouldn't have to keep healing idiots. If only. All they do is lecture me and strike off some pay. They made their way through the camp, passing by a crowd of shinobi standing around the dugout pit, 2 scorpions circling each other inside. Naruto was about to put a few coins on the red-striped scorpion, but Sasuke pulled him away. The coins ended up in the hand of a shinobi selling sticks of roasted mice. The crust was oily and chewy, and the meat tasted like snake. Not too bad, all things considered. They made it out of the camp's inner circle, moving past thinning rows of tents. Until, at the outmost edge of the camp, they closed in on a gray patchwork tent fastened to a dead tree. Sewing their 3 separate tents together, Sakura had put her special kunoichi classes to good use at last. Then she had chased them through the tent for mentioning it. Pushing the flap aside, Naruto poked his head inside and found Sakura asleep on her bedroll. You think she found something? He said quietly, crouching next to her. Sakura's face was peaceful, lips parting slightly as she breathed. Sasuke bunched up his white coat and threw it on a pile of dirty clothes that grew larger by the day. Doubtful. She's been at this for a while now. Naruto sighed. For the last 2 months, Sakura had used her time to make inquiries about her mother's death, who had perished on a trading mission to Suna. So far she'd had no luck though. There weren't many people inside the village willing to talk to her. Being a Konohanin carried quite the stigma in these parts. Still, every day she'd get up earlier than both Sasuke and him, organizing a quick breakfast for herself, leaving them a share, then making for the inner city in the hope to find a lead. Naruto swept a strand of pink hair falling in her face to the side. He hoped she'd find her answer soon. Sakura's eyes fluttered open at the touch. She looked confused for a second, then smiled sleepily. Time already? She said, stretching her arms, yawning. Sun's about to go down, Naruto said. Night shift today. Right, Sakura said, rising from the bedroll. I'll be ready in a minute. As Sakura was gearing up, Naruto contemplated the ever-growing pile of dirty laundry and the half-filled barrel of water next to it. It's not going to shrink by looking, Sasuke said. Shut it, you 2-bit doctor. Sasuke was amused, Naruto not so much. Naruto knew that, as the self-proclaimed master of water, the barrel and the laundry were his responsibility. That was the deal they had made at the start, none of them having warmed to the idea of using the washing tents provided in the camp. Sasuke and Sakura called it training his affinity. He hated that expression with a passion. Once Sakura was ready, Naruto sealed the tent with a rudimentary seal that would alert him should someone cross the perimeter. Laughable as it sounded, during the months of teaching he'd been an official member of the Academy's faculty, which had provided him with access to some interesting materials. Iruka himself liked to dabble in Fuinjutsu from time to time. He had been happy to help Naruto acquire a better understanding, though the process had been slow, and Iruka had put far too much focus on the basics. Team 7's patrol took them through the gaps in Suna's wall where they checked in with the Chunin, then went into the village. The part of Suna closest to the wall showed the heaviest signs of damage. It was littered with ruins, none of them being rebuilt. Konohanin so close were rather discouraging. Of the large, balloon-shaped buildings, one had remained. The rest was recognizable only in their foundation. They passed through the desolate area in a fast-paced walk. Naruto eyed the few souls scurrying through the rubble, pushing away wooden beams and stones in the hope of finding something valuable that might help them survive. They'd been doing that for a while now. The brave souls anyway, or the desperate ones. Usually they just stiffened up when they noticed Konohanin. In West Suna the scenery changed, the buildings looking robust and whole again. Today Team 7 kept to the streets, but Naruto had looked at the view from an intact 3-story house before. The shard wall outside of Suna was clear to see, even at night, when the reflection of the moon shimmered on its black surface. By now he had learned where it came from. The few Chunin Gigi had left Danzo were eager to talk once they had some sake. They were excited more than anything else and couldn't believe they were alive at all. During the short-lived siege, Suna's defenders had played their last card, loosening a mechanism that sent a sandslide of massive proportion rolling down the sweeping mountains. No matter the strength of an army, that amount of sand would have killed anyone. Panic was abound, or so the story went, and then the Hokage arrived. The result now towered over Suna, black, shard-like where the sand had broken through, and smooth to the touch. Even if it weren't for the physical proof, Naruto would have believed the story. From personal experience he knew that Gigi had his own brand of appearing exactly when he was needed. Team 7 went on in silence, each of them chasing after their own thoughts. This part of Suna was prettier, but Naruto disliked patrolling it. Citizens vacated the street when they came close, bringing as much distance between themselves and Team 7 as they could. Some were looking out the windows, pushing the shutters aside to shoot them a disdainful glare, scurrying away afterward, anxious to have been noticed. The sun was almost gone now, the sky a shade of violet. A group of children ran through the street ahead, chasing each other with wooden kunai. One of the boys hollered a war cry, storming at a girl, throwing his toy shuriken. She awkwardly deflected them under the appreciative noise of her friends. Naruto couldn't help correcting her form in his mind when the last shuriken made it through her defense, bumped off her shoulder, and dropped to the road. The girl turned and moved to pick it up, hazel eyes falling on Team 7. She froze, muttered a sharp word in a thick Suna accent, and the other children grew rigid beside her, eyes fixing on Team 7 as well. Naruto smiled as he walked by, hoping to ease them as the girl reached for the toy. Once she had it in her hand, though, the whole group shot off in a sprint, as if a hidden signal had been given, losing themselves in the city. He stared after them. Beside him Sasuke and Sakura said nothing. The patrol went on. A few blocks down the city and toward the market district Sakura slowed and eyed the stores around them, most boarded up. The rare open ones had blue fabric hanging from the top of the entrance. Naruto had seen this before. In Suna they color-coded a lot: blue for merchants, green for public baths and schools, red for flesh. You know, Sakura said, Gaara told me there's plants in the desert. Haven't seen any on the way, Naruto said, pausing in front of a store. Maybe there's a book about it. I want a map, so I've to find a store anyway. A map? Sasuke asked. Kamen told me about Wind Country, Naruto said. There's a lot to see if you know where to look. His words. Should we be worried that you can quote that pig? Sakura asked. Naruto shrugged. The fat advisor at the daimyo's court was a disgusting creature, all right. It's from when he still thought we're buddies. Might as well use the knowledge. I doubt he meant the sites you've in mind, Sasuke said. I'm not looking for the places he mentioned, Naruto said. It's the sentiment that counts. Know where to look. Hell, I don't know where to look. But if I have a map, that changes. It's not like we discussed this place at the academy. Sasuke grunted. Even if we had, you wouldn't have noticed. Naruto's right though, Sakura said, wearing a contemplative look. We need a better overview of Wind Country. The academy didn't teach much more than the location of Suna, the sweeping mountains, and Sakura. That's not nearly enough for our purpose here. Sakura? Naruto said. Capital of Wind Country, Sasuke said. Joy. The Tanyu of the desert. Something like that, yes, Sakura said. I like the idea. They searched the stores with the blue-clothed entrances, browsed the wares, and found one selling maps and books. Once they went farther down the market and toward the Shimaz district, where Suna's academy lay. Naruto went in, fully expecting to haggle with the shopkeeper, but that wasn't necessary. The man cowered against the wall behind his cash register. He seemed surprised to get any money at all. Naruto left the store with a heavy feeling in his gut and a detailed map of Wind Country in his pockets. Team 7 continued their patrol and was about to turn another corner, when a shriek caught their attention. They leaped onto a damaged roof, half of it crumbled, and sped to the source. The kids, Naruto said, seeing the children with the wooden toys down in the street. 3 Chunin, Sakura said, nodding at the shinobi in front of them. Naruto's felt his muscles tighten. He'd expected this sooner or later. There was a lot of anger to go around. One Chunin had the girl by the sleeve and was holding her up in the air, bellowing in her face. Playing shinobi, eh? You like being a Suna shinobi? Like being good at killing friends and family as the others? Well, not today, you little shit. I'll teach you. Let her go. The boy who had earlier barraged the girl with toy shuriken threw himself forward, but the man slapped him into a stack of crates. Kakashi! The girl cried out. Naruto closed his eyes, inhaling, flexing his fingers. Sakura moved first. In a blur she appeared between the Chunin and the children. Is there a problem here? Sasuke and Naruto were with her in the street a second later. The Chunin spat on the ground, instilling discipline. Can't have them Suna kids be learning how to fight. I can see your problem if that's how you learned fighting. Sasuke's expression wasn't friendly. The man let out a belly laugh. It was a deep, ugly sound. Suna lovers, eh? There's a fair bit of you running around here. Stop it, Naruto said. Then the man kicked at the girl on the ground. Sasuke was in front of her in an instant, sword rammed in the ground, stopping the Chunin's foot cold. The man staggered back. Naruto hammered his fist into his side, sending him crashing into the wall of a house. When Naruto turned around, the other two Chunin were unconscious already, Sakura standing beside them. Naruto crouched in front of the girl, offering his hand to help her up. It's alright, he said. They won't do anything. Before she could react, the boy jumped at them from the crates, slapping Naruto's hand away. He screamed, "Run, Iwa!" And like a skittish colt she reacted to the barest hint of noise, following the order. Naruto evaded a kick to the shin, then watched both of them run away the second time that day. This isn't good, Sasuke said, nudging the unconscious body of the Chunin closest to him with his foot. Sakura sighed. You can say that again. Why is it always us? Naruto shook his head. Let's get back to camp. We'll deposit these guys on the way. Maybe they'll have amnesia or something. That would be really helpful. Sasuke expected their supervisor to call for them before the night was over, and as usual he was right. 2 hours after they had deposited the 3 unconscious Chunin at a dumpster near the medical tent, the authorities came calling. Uchiha, Haruno, Uzumaki, the genin before their tent said, Counselor Danzo wants you at command. Sasuke hadn't even had time to change his expression when the genin already flinched back. Sasuke turned and saw Naruto standing behind him, stone-faced, glaring straight ahead. He really got too excited at times. You think he'll punish us? Naruto signed, following the genin through the camp. It's possible, Sakura signed. I'm curious actually. We never met the man, have we? Might have been better to meet him under different circumstances. Sasuke glanced around. For now none of the shinobi they passed shot them angry looks. Who knew how long that would last? When they arrived at command, their shadow left them with a relieved sigh. For a moment Sasuke stood before the large tent, a brief hesitation gripping him. Then he walked past the 2 silent Chunin guarding the entrance and pushed the flap away, Naruto and Sakura right behind him. The tent was spacious and bare. Maps of different sizes lay unfurled on a large table in the middle, clay figurines of leaves scattered across them. Heat filled the tent, and Sasuke's eyes were drawn to the embers in 2 heavy braziers standing to one side. It was the absence of any bothersome smells, booze, grease, sweat that made it stand out. Sasuke focused on the 2 shinobi standing by the braziers, flames chasing shadows across their faces. The first was a heavy-set, bald Chunin, their current supervisor. Taki Takamwell, something like that. Sasuke had never bothered to learn his name. They didn't know how strong Taki was, but Sakura estimated the size of his chakra pool to be around her own, which wasn't an easy accomplishment by now, even for a Chunin. That at least had earned him a cautious amount of respect from Team 7. Danzo, however, was much more interesting, and Sasuke cursed his Sharingan for not working properly. He had the feeling that Danzo was someone worth taking in all the details of. Alone I looked at them from the half-bandaged face. Similar to Kakashi, but far less prone to showing emotion. Deep scars littered the stretch of face that could be seen. Combat experience, and not just a little. Even if crippled, the man made Sasuke wary. It was in the way he moved slow, but with a precision that made each step seem controlled. They will no longer be under your command, Takahashi-san, Danzo said to the Chunin. I will send you a new group. I can live with that. I need no crazy folk backstabbing our guys. Thank you, Danzo-sama. Takahashi didn't even grace Team 7 with another look and marched right out the tent, leaving them alone with Danzo. Which wasn't the worst development, Sasuke thought. The man obviously stood against what they did, and that could only mean trouble if he stayed in a position of power over them. His hurtful words, and they stabbed Sasuke right in his heart, would be forgotten in time. I already questioned everyone else involved in this matter, Danzo said. Have you assaulted 3 Chunin this evening? Stepping forward, Naruto said, we have, but... Danzo's cane hit the table with a loud smack. Despite the violent reaction, however, Danzo looked at them as if he'd been born without emotions. He lifted the cane off the table, controlled, as if he hadn't just lashed out with it. His face didn't even twitch. Sasuke had to applaud that, if nothing else. The appreciation soon gave way again to the overpowering instinct that this man wasn't a good enemy to have. Do you know the word order, Uzumaki Naruto? In an entirely sensible anticipation of his teammate's psychological mindset, Sasuke's index finger twitched once. Naruto kept silent. Whether Danzo had noticed the exchange wasn't clear, though Sasuke expected it. Danzo stepped forward until he was eye to eye with Naruto. Order, he continued, is what must be upheld at all times if we're to win this war. When Naruto stayed quiet, Danzo turned to Sakura. Do you know the word necessity, Hireno Sakura? She, too, remained silent. Sasuke gave her credit for not blinking as Danzo seemed to stare directly into her soul. It is the constraint that forces us to act one way or another unless we are content with losing. He arrived at Sasuke. Do you understand the word loyalty, Uchiha Sasuke? The word loyalty shouldn't have punctured his composure, and it didn't, not really, but the image of his brother still flashed briefly through his mind. That and the expedition to rescue Kakashi, which had made Sasuke the most similar he'd ever been to his brother, as far as he could tell. Loyalty stands for all that supports our ambition. It drives us to great heights, grounds us when the storm becomes unbearable. Most of all, however, it assures us that within our ranks we all strive for the same, that none of us will betray the other in this pursuit. Do you see, Team 7, why your actions anger me? We are at war, Danzo said, voice frigid, the first emotion Sasuke could really tell from his tone and not the content of his words. This is not fire country. Here we're at our most vulnerable and have to be united, always, because the enemy is everywhere. I will brook no dissent, no disobedience, no disloyalty. Not from you, nor from anyone else. This time Sasuke's well-placed finger twitch was ignored, and though he disliked that, he'd expected it. Naruto wouldn't be able to stomach much more of this speech. It all sounded good and reasonable in theory, of course, but what had happened this evening wasn't of a theoretical nature. They were children, Naruto said. And they got hurt for being born here. That's no necessity. And it isn't order either. Sasuke wondered if the cane would hit Naruto next instead of the table. If it came to that, he had his sword ready though. He also wondered if it was bad that he even considered treason a second time, and if they'd be able to survive against the counselor. Danzo's cane remained still, for now. Have you not heard what I just said, Uzumaki? It is a necessity to present a united front, no matter what happens. Otherwise this country will swallow us whole. It is order and loyalty not to sow dissent by attacking your own comrades. And the reasons don't matter? It is not a question of reason, Danzo said, but of visibility. Had you helped those children escape without showing yourself, no consequences would have met you. Had you reported the Chunin, I would be reprimanding them right now. You, however, chose to show that we are not unified, and that is a foolishness I will not abide. Shinobi do not act without considering their circumstances. Naruto clenched his fists as Danzo turned away from them and shuffled over to a smaller table at the other side of the tent. Sakura leaned over, whispering something in his ear that Sasuke couldn't hear. Slowly the fists unclenched. The glare Naruto directed at Danzo's back remained heavy as a battle axe though. Coming back with 2 scrolls, Danzo said, you are already noted down for being disobedient. You've been barred from official promotion through the Jonin exams, and your record is marred with an entry of treason. I had not thought you stupid enough to risk even more damage. Sasuke's pulse went faster. The braziers seemed much hotter now. Their records were sealed, the third had told them as much. No one was to know about what had happened in the weeks directly after the invasion. There is only one way for you to advance in rank now, continued Danzo, and that is through a field promotion. I can make you Jonin Team 7. In fact, you are on the best way to reach that rank. But I will not promote you unless I can be completely assured of your loyalty to this cause and to Konoha. If he could get away with it, Sasuke would love to tell Danzo where he could shove that promotion. His mind was pacing to connect the dots, however. Had Danzo been involved back then? Had he always known? Or had the third shared it with him before sending them off to Suna? Teamwork has always been Konoha's strength, Danzo said, but it doesn't mean individuals are unable to stand on their own. For the foreseeable future you will work under different supervisors, directly assisting them. They will further your studies and teach you how to lead effectively. Danzo handed Sasuke and Sakura a scroll each. Report to these shinobi at sunrise. After a beat of silence he added, and take down that gray monstrosity. It is a blemish on this camp and impractical. You will sleep near your supervisors. Sakura said, what about? Haruno Uchiha, you have your orders. Naruto nodded at them, and Sasuke left the tent with Sakura after a moment, unwilling but trusting Naruto to survive long enough for them to get back inside should the meeting go south. They waited for a few minutes until Naruto finally came out, face stretched as if he just ate spoiled ramen. What did he want? Sakura said. They were walking back to their tent. Naruto emitted a low growl. He let me know who my supervisor's going to be. Sakura's mouth shaped a silent O, while Sasuke pinched the bridge of his nose and closed his eyes. There was no need to say more. But he sure as hell didn't envy Naruto. That, he decided, would be one uncomfortable working relationship. The way back to their temporary home was silent. There was no need to talk, really, and Sakura was trailing slightly behind her teammates, looking about the camp. She tried to come up with something positive in this situation, anything, but Counselor Danzo's decision made it hard. I can't believe he called it a monstrosity, she said, as they arrived at their tent. Suna's nights were windy, and the gray flap of fabric flittered in between gusts. That's not really our problem, Sasuke said, entering and plopping himself on a cushion. He stared stonily at the other side of the tent, while Naruto went over to the table, splashing his face with water from a bowl. Sakura sighed as her pitiful attempt at injecting humor failed. She looked at her teammates. So far the only time they'd been split up had been during their training with Kakashi-sensei. Back then it had been bearable, they had barely known each other, but now, after everything they went through, prying them apart seemed such a cruel punishment to her, and her heartbeat quickened when she thought back to the moment Danzo had told them. That crippled old bastard, holding his sanctimonious speech, talking about loyalty to whom? Him? The notion almost made her laugh, and preaching about order and necessity and all the lofty values they should aspire to, and what it meant to lead, dangling their promotion in front of them, as if that was of any consequence to them, as if they cared one lick for it, and… Sakura felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see Naruto next to her. She quickly wiped her hand over her face, and smiled, first at him, then at Sasuke, who looked as though he'd go revisit Danzo. Easy there, Naruto said. Danzo is a problem, but we've managed worse than him. I'd take that asshole over Kabuto any time. Dobe's telling the truth, Sasuke said, nodding. We'll get this sorted out soon enough. A snort escaped Sakura, and she didn't have to strain her lips anymore to smile, because seeing Sasuke as a pillar of support was equally heartwarming as it was disturbing. She took deep breaths until she felt she had regained some measure of control. That cripple got our measure, she said at last. I don't buy what he told us about learning to lead. As if… and having Naruto under his direct command? He's after something. She looked at Naruto, who sat beside her, pants rolled up, massaging his right calf. The Kyuubi maybe? There's something to be said for having an in with a Jinchuriki. Having an in? I doubt he's stupid enough to think I like him after this stunt. Even if, that's not what I'm worried about, we'll find out what he wants soon enough. Naruto switched from the right calf to the left. What I want to know is how he learned about our little adventure. Gigi said the records are sealed. Either he stole the information, Sasuke said, or the Hokage told him. I want to say it's the first, but we've no proof. And he's a commander, so there might be something to the second possibility. It took a moment for Sakura to process the words. Sasuke standing shirtless next to the barrel and washing himself didn't make it easy to think, no matter how often they had seen each other naked already. Right, Naruto said, having finished with his legs and moving on to hers. Either way, we don't have much of a choice. If we don't do what he tells us to do, we'll be in heaps of trouble. So we split? Sakura said. Just saying it out loud made it more tangible, and also quite sad. For 2 years the thought of living alone hadn't crossed her mind. She wanted for it to stay that way. Not for long, Naruto said, smile encouraging but breaking apart at the seams. We'll find a way, don't you worry, Sakura. All we've to do is convince him that keeping us together is the better option. That's not going to be easy, said Sasuke. Maybe, Naruto said, but it beats the alternative, and I'm not letting that old fucker win. More disturbing than even the uncertainty and hunger was the sound of rattling chains. A single movement, and the clangor would start. Seconds passed, and then the door to the right, always that one, would open. His host knew he was conscious then, and through the door came laughter and a whistle, always the same tune from a children's song he remembered before the man himself entered. Kakashi glared at Orochimaru. His eye was swollen and crusted with blood. Ah, Kakashi? Awake again, I see. Orochimaru took a syringe from a metal gurney at the far side of the cell. You will be pleased to hear that your solitude won't last much longer now. Kakashi jerked against the chains and tried to get away. But his body had stopped listening days ago, and the bindings held him in place. Almost tenderly, Orochimaru patted his purple bruised arm before inserting the needle. Heat spread through his arm and the veins bulged, contorted, writhed like little asps over his muscles. He moaned, and when the urge to scream grew overwhelming, he bit his lip hard enough to keep it in. Orochimaru blew air on his arm and the pain surged past every threshold he knew. You know I'm not a liar. So, believe me when I say that you will have enough company very soon. Kakashi blinked through the tears. The second needle broke the skin. Kakashi shot up, tearing the sound out of his lungs in a roar. To his right were white walls, a window. Outside, a beech tree was whispering. His eyes flickered around the room. The smell of antiseptic and white sheets greeted him. A beep recurring in the rhythm of his pounding blood ripped through the haze. Then his heartbeat became louder than the noise and he breathed in large gulps, a man drowning and gasping for air, until the choking in his throat subsided. Assess the situation, do not falter. He felt for his chakra and found it circulating through his pathways, coursing past the gates as it had always done before. He stopped the circulation for a moment, then let it resume, basking in the feeling of having it surge through his body. This was no genjutsu then. But why? You must have wondered why you're still alive, prisoners always do. The answer is easy. I am a cautious man, you see? I had a plan, and in case my plan failed I needed a backup. The memory came unbidden. It flickered into existence, a haunting specter, nothing more. Looks like we caught ourselves a drenched snake, Itachi-san. A specter that summoned more of its kind. Kakashi held his head as the images followed. He was lying on the ground and in front of him crouched someone with black hair, gripping the hilt of a sword tight enough for the knuckles to show bone white against the skin and black leather. Helping your little brother Itachi? Blood twining with dirt in her hair, Sakura stood unbowed beside Sasuke. I have a name, you assholes! Naruto's back, broad as the trunk of a sycamore, shielding him from danger. Kakashi's mind jumped farther, but he pulled himself together, breathed in and out, in and out. His hand reached up to the right side of his face, feeling for the empty cavity under the bandages and finding an eye where there should be none. From the hallway came hurried footsteps. They mixed with the beeping from the machine which had become unsteady and rapid. Before his mind registered what he was doing, Kakashi ripped the cannula connecting him to a tube out of his arm, ignoring the sting and the blood, hiding the cannula in his palm. A nurse entered the room, wearing the uniform of Konoha's healers. She rushed over but stopped midway and he felt blood soaking through the bandages over his eye as the Sharingan activated on instinct. The moment passed. You're finally awake, Kakashi-san, thank God. The nurse came closer, and he almost flinched away as she inspected his face. Tsunade-sama has been informed, she told him. She'll be here any minute now to take care of you, I promise. But first. She pulled something out of a drawer and Kakashi's gaze followed her as she returned with a new cannula, attaching it to the tube with great care. Let's get you set up, she said, and as the needle pierced his arm he stared over her shoulder at the wall, the previous cannula hidden in his palm burying deep into his flesh. There, she said, it's done? And once Tsunade-sama is here you'll be on your feet quickly, you'll see. My team? Tsunade-sama will tell you everything soon, I'm sure, Kakashi-san. Only the pink one. You have another purpose, and Itachi-san wants his brother for himself. Kakashi seized her arm. Where is my team? She breathed rapidly now, and they were close enough that her warm breath reached him with every expulsion of air. His grip slackened and his arm fell useless to the side. I'm sorry, he said. I don't know what. The nurse clutched her arm to her body, even as her lips parted in a sad smile. It's quite all right, she said, calming down and patting his hand. You can be proud of them, yes, I think you really can. I only know what's being told in the cafeteria, but they were great. All three of them. Kakashi soaked up the words as she spoke. Saved a lot of civilians, I hear. And I reckon a lot of the older folks had their notions challenged, you know what I mean, about the blonde kid Uzumaki. As though all inertia yielded, lightheadedness entered his mind. They had done well. They had survived. Where are they now? He asked. The nurse glanced at her shoes and then at the door as the clicking of heels resounded from the hallway. I just want to know if they are fine, Kakashi said. She hesitated a second longer, then said, they're with my son. In Suna, I mean. My son's there now too, and… the content feeling evaporated. He threw the blanket on him aside and struggled out of the bed, seeing her lips move but not paying attention to her words anymore. They were in Suna and that could mean all manner of things, none of them good. Kakashi. His name was spoken, a single command, and he sunk back into the mattress as Senju Tsunade strode up to the bed, heels echoing in her wake. Her assistant walked right behind her, holding a clipboard in her hands. Shizen, if he recalled. Tsunade-sama, said the nurse. I'll take it from here. The nurse scurried past Shizen and did not look back at Kakashi as she left. Once alone, Tsunade scanned him for injuries, prodding his pectorals and arms with hands glowing a bright green in the dimness of the room. You need rest, Kakashi, she said. Orochimaru had you far too long for you to be jumping around and scaring my staff. I doubt I can jump right now. Shizen scribbled on the clipboard. We felt your chakra fluctuating from miles away, she told him as Tsunade's fingertips massaged the skin around his eye. You mustn't exert yourself. What that man did to you. I promised to keep it down. Now, why is my team in Suna and how did I end up here? You were rescued, Tsunade said. That's all I can tell you. The records are sealed. Sealed? But… Kakashi. Her tone made clear that he wouldn't get any answers about the rescue from her. Not today, at least. Why Suna? Tsunade finished healing his eye. The loss of her cooling chakra left his body and him wanting for more. You missed out on a lot since you got captured, she told him, washing her hands at the other side of the room. I don't have time to give you all the details, but Shizen will make sure you get an accurate report of current events. More softly, your brats are fine, Kakashi. Now stop running the miracle we worked to save you. How long until I can see them? You're a stubborn ox, you know that? She turned off the faucet and, toweling her hands, came back to his bed. First we have to get you healthy again. Then we can talk about sending you over. Define healthy. If his suspicions turned out to be true, then his team had gone far and beyond what he had ever expected of them. Stories weren't enough after that. He needed to see them. Needed to convince himself in person that they were alive. That they had, despite his treatment of them, adhered to the very core of the principles he had tried to instill in them. You're still too agitated, Tsunade said. And Kakashi had neither the presence of mind nor the strength to avoid her as she put a finger on his forehead, whispered a word, and the world turned a hazy green before growing black altogether. Have you understood the motion? Naruto nodded at Danzo. They were out in the desert, 2 miles away from Suna. Heat shimmered over the sand. They had been there for hours now, behind a large dune that kept the village out of sight. Explain, Danzo said. Naruto was tired and concentrating was difficult. But for Danzo, excuses didn't count if he gave the wrong answer. The vagus nerve, Naruto said. It's the link between the 12th and the 13th meridian in the neck. One hit at the right angle and the flow of blood and chakra will be stopped, leading to unconsciousness. Where does this technique come from? The Hyuga, Naruto thought. Something with the Hyuga. Damn, that's not everything. I know this. Naruto racked his brain, but Danzo hated to wait, and knowing that made thinking all the harder. Uzumaki. The Hyuga, Naruto said. They gave it up. Danzo narrowed his eyes. The wrong answer, then? He wished he had some water for his dry throat. The location of the nerve is common knowledge, Danzo said. Right, Naruto picked up the thought, remembering how it continued. Different villages, different ways to use it. The Hyuga gave Konoha a simple technique accessible to Chunin and above. Recalling the rest of the memory, he said, it's common knowledge, so it's not used often. Every shinobi is trained to guard that area. If I find an opening, though, I can end the fight in one move. Show me, Danzo said. He linked his hands. A clone rose out of the sand beside him. Naruto squared his shoulders. Having 2 bandaged mummies observe him wasn't all that pleasant. He'd gotten used to it by now, though, and stared straight ahead, muscles flexing. The heat was much worse. In the camp, the eaves of the tents spent shadow. Out here there was nothing, and his neck was hot and slick with sweat. Naruto eyed the clone, waited for the real Danzo to put some distance between them, then shot forward. The sand sprayed up where he stepped. In 3 leaps he had reached his target, left hand rising. The clone was much slower than the original. By the time it turned to defend, Naruto had already circled around, delivering a heavy chop to the neck. The result was a puff of smoke. Acceptable, Danzo said. Afterwards he began the trek up the large dune, Naruto a step behind, limbs heavy from the training. Moving in the sand required a certain way to circulate your chakra. Hours of training left him with little focus, however, and he felt himself sink into the sand, muscles straining as he followed Danzo. As always, the trip back to camp was spent in silence. Danzo only ever talked when he lectured, and then his sentences were created with an otherworldly frugality. He also didn't like repeating himself. A quarter of a year in Suna, 1 month of that time under Danzo's personal supervision, and Naruto couldn't believe that time as a whole moved that fast, but during the day went at a snail's pace. When they'd been told they would fight in a war, he had expected ceaseless action. He thought they'd have to run from position to position, advancing, fighting, never resting or retreating. Much like the rescue mission for Kakashi-sensei. War was slow though. It pounced once, maybe twice, the weight behind those attacks devastating. Then the beast was satisfied, its own blood-swollen belly pulling it to the ground. Each day he would follow Danzo around, scribbling down what the man dictated, but most of all listening to what he said. Naruto heard about the front lines between Kusa, Iwa, and Konoha, which hadn't moved an inch in all this time. He heard of the destruction of Waterfall Country, and how the shinobi there had destroyed all traces of the hero's water before seeking refuge in Konoha. He listened as Danzo told him of Rain Country, and how their uncompromising stance toward outsiders made it impossible to predict their actions. And as time progressed, Naruto saw how frustrated Danzo actually was with his current position. He only revealed it in short glimpses, and with a man like Danzo, Naruto was careful not to misinterpret what he noticed in small gestures and little twitches. Wind Country, Danzo would tell him, had to be pacified at all costs. This country was at best a liability to drag them down, at worst a kunai poised to stab them in the back. It all went back to necessity, and how it was necessary to do whatever it took to make sure Suna would not cost Konoha this war. At the end of such a lecture, Naruto would nod dutifully. He disliked the bandaged cripple as much as on the first day, but he couldn't deny that the lessons were worth it. Danzo knew how to lead people. Danzo knew how to fight. And Danzo also was in control of himself for as long as Naruto served him now. Control. That was the keyword. 1 month of surface knowledge about the elemental nations, and already Naruto felt more in control. He knew where to go should he have to rescue someone again, and which places were guarded so heavily that infiltration was impossible. Each day of new information shone a different light on the 2 weeks after the Chunin exam. Kakashi was a lucky man, he now understood. Not just on an instinctual level but also through factual knowledge. That mission could have gone wrong in so many ways, their success was a major miracle. 2 of those and they could petition to found a religion. A crazy old man had told him that in Suna's market square. Naruto entered the camp behind Danzo, the Chunin at the gate saluting them. The camp was noisy and, as usual, a punch to the nose. Naruto was used to it by now, but the sheer amount of smells that coalesced in this stronghold was able to knock out a biju. He heard "O Uzumaki" from a group of shinobi near the palisade that ringed the camp. They snapped off a quick salute when Danzo went past, and knowing that he'd have half an hour before Danzo would need him again, Naruto went over to them. 3 months had tanned them good. Their vests were leaning against a barrel, and they worked the latrine with large shovels, turning the sand. Danzo had declared the use of earth jutsu for latrine duty as frivolous, making it a punishment that Sakura had become quite familiar with. "What's up?" Naruto said, walking up to them, stench growing worse. The guy who had called him, tall and burly, punted his shovel into the ground, leaning on the wooden handle. "Barrel's empty again," he said, grinning. "You ought to make good on your duties, Waterba." The group around him nodded. They were all in agreement on the issue, and while they laughed, Naruto flipped them off, stalking over to the barrel. He looked inside and found it empty except for a small puddle at the bottom. He heard, "See? It's empty." "Get back to shoveling," Naruto said. They laughed again but returned to their work. Naruto called up his chakra, pushing it through his hands and filling the barrel. 2 minutes later the job was done, and he was frustrated as always by the small progress he'd made. He contemplated spitting in the barrel for good measure but stopped himself. Latrine duty was bad enough. It left your hands hurting and sore, and your nose in a constant state of feeling threatened. "Done," Naruto said, passing them. "Thanks, Waterba." The burly man wiped his brow and nodded. He was still grinning but it wasn't malicious, and Naruto let it go. He waved lazily, then moved on, stomach tightening. He hadn't eaten since morning and still had 20 minutes until Danzo wanted him back at command. Deeper into the camp he exchanged a handful of coins for a piece of bread and a stew with snake meat. He settled down on a crate, scooping the meat out of the spicy broth, chewing slowly as he watched shinobi pass by. Snake was really fatty, and he made sure to always eat bread with it to avoid stomach aches. Much like eel, he found. He hadn't eaten eel in a long while. The last time had been at Ichiraku's. Naruto smiled at the memory. Old man Tucci had made a real bargain with some trader, and seafood ramen had become the big thing to eat for a month. His smile grew strained when he remembered that the cook needed her barrel filled as well. The woman, hair up in a bun and secured by a net, was watching him with a gruff look to make sure he brought back the bowl and the spoon, and wouldn't forget his duty. Should have never asked Danzo. Sighing, Naruto got up to his feet and went over to the barrel while she put the dishes away. Once, he had asked about training in something else than taijutsu, and Danzo, humanity's embodiment of apathy, had smiled. Naruto had resolved to never see that smile again if possible. There were no techniques to be learned, Danzo had said, but Naruto could always sharpen his control over his element. From then on, whenever the cripple was occupied with something he didn't want company for, Naruto completed the momentous task of refilling the water barrels around camp. 3 minutes before the time was up, Naruto entered into the cozy tent next to command, leaving behind the red evening sun. Danzo was inside already, sitting at a table decked out on one side with sugared fruit, bread, cheese, and a gilded goblet, and being completely bare on the other side. A small map hung dangerously close to a torch holder stuck in the ground. Across Danzo, and partaking in all the delicacies on offer, sat a man of medium height. He sported dark brown hair with specks of white, sharp eyes that made him look like a hawk, and brown skin. His green robes were spun from silk and lined with silver. He had a chain around the neck good to choke him with, should the situation call for it. The ring on the thumb of his right hand was what made him important, though. The daimyo's head advisor, Chunin, didn't even notice the new arrival and continued talking to Danzo. Naruto went past, smelling the strong scent of alcohol coming from the trio of decanters near the man, busying himself with sorting useless documents on the small desk not too far away. Chunin's mission, as far as Naruto knew, was to oversee what little of Konoha's pacification process Danzo was willing to let him view, and then report back to his master. He was an arrogant bastard, but knew his stuff about the situation in Winged Country. There have been multiple attacks on the main road to Sakura now, Danzo-dano, Chunin said. I must make my report, but leaving Suna without an adequate escort is out of question. Your aid will be appreciated. Danzo sat listening. From what Naruto could tell, he hadn't touched a single drop of alcohol in 3 months, nor had he eaten food that was different from what his men ate. In that, Naruto felt grudging respect for him. But that could also be because he disliked Chunin. The advisor was an outsider. And even though Naruto wanted to trip Danzo every time he saw him, he'd love spitting in the goblet of that pompous guy even more. That is acceptable, Chunin-dano, Danzo said. The daimyo's continuous support plays a crucial role in the pacification process. Your safety, therefore, is as important to me as it is to you. Naruto suppressed the temptation to cough loudly and mix in a few words of choice. I am quite sure, Chunin said. He looked like a fly had flown into his nostril and was partying it up inside, producing a sneer that fell short just before reaching its full potential. In any event, Chunin continued, 3 teams should suffice to deliver me safely to Sakura. High-ranking shinobi, of course. I do not want Genin blundering about and getting my entourage killed by accident. He paused to take a sip from his goblet. It would be for the best if they had a rudimentary knowledge of the area as well. On the chance that we have to flee the main road, I do not want to be in the hands of geographical illiterates. Danzo had sat still during Chunin's account of demands, doing nothing but leaning slightly forward and listening. Naruto, though, became giddy after having seen the subtle sign of Danzo's displeasure, the minuscule shift of weight on his cane. This could be the chance he had waited for, and he positioned himself so neither could see his face well, in case his expression would give him away. You will excuse me if I think your demand of 3 teams to be overly cautious, Danzo said, voice measured. I can spare 1 team, Chunin-dano. They will be Chunin of high skill, I assure you. Naruto saw Chunin balling his hands into fists under the table. You have a large force at your command here, Danzo-dano, and you are telling me you can spare but 1 team? I find that hard to believe. It is unfortunate, but with your specific requests, only a few teams are possible. Most of them have other missions that are of vital importance. Naruto perked up at that. Team 7 certainly wasn't on a mission of vital importance, but soon, maybe, they would be. He tried to contain his grin. Do not worry too much, continued Danzo. The team I have in mind consists of seasoned shinobi. 3 men, in fact, with a spotless record. The grin slid off Naruto's face, anticipation giving way to disappointment, then to a surging sense of anger and self-deprecation. Of course, Danzo hadn't meant Team 7. The idea that he would send them on this mission outside Suna was ridiculous. Team 7 hadn't exactly made it on Danzo's list of favorite people if there existed such a thing, and Naruto chided himself for being blinded even by the wish for a reunion with his teammates. Is that your last word on this matter? asked Chunin. It is, answered Danzo. The two of them entered a staring contest, and Naruto had to give the advisor credit for holding out that long. Looking into that bandaged face was unnerving at best, horrifying at worst. It was clear though who would win in the end. The daimyo's support was important, yes, but not to such an extent that Danzo would let him dictate the terms. Konoha had conquered, after all, and not the other way around. They kept staring at each other, and Naruto thought, I'll find a way to get this team back together, just you watch Danzo. There's nothing that can stop Uzumaki Naruto when he wants something. Hear me? Nothing. Not you, and certainly not this desert or Orochimaru or Akatsuki or anything else. As it was bound to happen, Shurin's eyes flickered away first, shying any further contest with the crippled commander in front of him. One team then, he said. I just hope they are as good as you claim. Oh, I will make sure they're good, don't you worry. Naruto edged closer to the table. The talk was nearing its end, and he still had no idea how to bring Team 7 into the race. But he was perfectly willing to try something. This was a good opportunity to get back with Sasuke and Sakura and then kiss Danzo goodbye for a while. I hope you get this rebel problem under control soon, Danzo-dano, Shurin said, as he rose, eyeing the map hanging next to them. There are many paths open to them, and it seems impossible to predict from where they will strike next. Our Lord Daimyo wants this tasteless matter of bloodshed settled as soon as possible. The parting shot hit, though Naruto doubted Shurin had seen the sign of displeasure in the way Danzo gripped his cane. Then the words registered. Naruto's mind began pacing through the options, Shurin's request for Chunin with geographic literacy fresh in his mind. Naruto looked at the map. Danzo's lectures had to be good for something. A gamble, of course, but what wasn't? It's a damn sight better than doing nothing. Go big or go home, Uzumaki. Now's the time to prove you got it. He cleared his throat and began talking, staring straight at the map and ignoring Danzo. It's true that we can't see the rebels' every move, Shurin-sama, but for your journey it shouldn't be impossible to make predictions. The most vulnerable part of the road to Sukuru is at the fringe of the sweeping mountains, just before the village Kwako. If someone were planning to attack you, that would be the spot they'd likely choose. It's an equal distance away from Suna and Sukuru. Naruto pointed at two more parts on the map. A large rebel force can't be sustained by the few small villages in the area, so the bulk of the attack would probably stem from the regions around Shurshur and Hajim. Both are reasonably large cities that lie, for now, outside of our influence. Finished with his explanation, he turned back to his listeners. His palms were sweaty, and not just from the torch next to him. He felt a nervous twitter in his gut. Kakashi's training, fighting Orochimaru and Akatsuki, and still things like this could make him nervous. The silence in the tent was tangible, like a cloud of cold smoke. It dissipated when Shurin said, Your aide seems to have a good grasp of the area, Danzo-dano. Naruto's body relaxed. This was good. He has indeed, Danzo said. Giving Danzo the finger seemed inappropriate, but he'd love to do it anyway. If only Team 7 could get out of that geezer's sphere of influence, everything would sort itself out and they wouldn't have to worry about being split up permanently. Then Naruto's eyes wandered back to Shurin and his mood turned abruptly. The advisor's not quite sneer was back in full force. He is rather pretentious though, is he not? Turning to Naruto, in conversations such as this you have no right to speak, boy. You should remember that. A growl tickled Naruto's vocal cords. He held it back. Shurin said, What rank is he if I may ask? Chunin, Danzo said. Really? I would not have expected that after this display. Please do not take offense, Shurin-dano. Youth is brash at times. Nodding at Naruto, Danzo said, You are released for today, Uzumaki. I will see you in the morning. Make sure to fulfill your other duties until then. Naruto didn't stick around after the dismissal. He walked away in a measured fashion, but the moment he had cleared the tent he balled his fists and released the growl that had been rising in his throat. Evening settling further, Naruto ambled through the camp to calm himself. He felt angry at the dismissal, furious once more at Danzo splitting them up in the first place, and it occurred to him eventually that he and nobles didn't mix, and that he wouldn't admit defeat that easily. Nothing was lost quite yet, and where he might have failed, his team would pick up the slack. That's how it worked in Team 7. Danzo would learn that soon enough. He just had to find his teammates first. They had set up a spot near the shard wall where they could meet, but the times had been few and short, their supervisors riding them hard. Danzo's contribution, no doubt. It wasn't a lot of physical work, but they were kept busy enough not to see each other too often. Naruto cast a glance at the darkening sky. Most nights were surprisingly cold in Suna. Once in a while, however, there were inexplicable days, like this one, where the daytime heat stayed well into the night. Popping his fingers and stretching, Naruto moved on. He would have to gather the rest of Team 7 soon. Chunin planned to start his journey the next day, and if they wanted to use that opportunity, it had to be done quickly. Looking for Sakura wouldn't be much of a problem. She was somewhere in the camp, swamped by the useless paperwork her supervisor hoisted off on her whenever she thought Sakura wasn't working hard enough. Sasuke was far more troublesome. He was either patrolling, which made it hard to narrow down his position in a large village like Suna, or he was dealing with some crotchety old lady. Chico, something like that. After setting up camp in Suna's old hospital complex, Konoha's medical services now extended to the population as well. Sasuke had met that old bird there. What they did together was anybody's guess, though. Problem is, I've no idea where that Chico lady lives. Naruto swerved out of the way as a pair of Konohanin blundered past him. One of them sported a busted lip and a swollen eye. He was leaning heavily on his friend, whose stomach was shaking with suppressed laughter. The one that had taken a beating mumbled something. Grinning, the girl supporting him said, "Yeah, you totally showed him. I've never seen such a display of pure ability." A comment for which her partner painstakingly raised his arm to swat at her head. Naruto stared after them. His chances of locating Sasuke weren't good, but he knew just the right person for this job. And finding him was quite easy during this time of the day. There existed a simple truth to living in this camp. And if you asked any shinobi not attached to some hard-ass supervisor, they'd give you the same answer: boredom. The bulk of the army stayed in Suna, leaving all the fired-up shinobi with far too much time on their hands. They took to gambling, drank themselves silly, and invented harebrained dares that defied reason and common sense entirely. All in all, his crowd exactly. Last week alone had seen 3 genin being treated at the hospital for having swallowed a scorpion. Sasuke's expression must have been priceless. Beside those options of passing time, there was a last bit of amusement to be had in the camp, however. Naruto reached it presently, a large tent that just 2 months ago had served as a storeroom for provisions. A clever supervisor, now certainly a well-liked one, had convinced Danzo to relocate the provisions to a safer place, thus clearing out the tent. From inside came the uproar of dozens of voices, followed by laughter. Naruto pushed the flap aside and entered the tent. Shinobi sat scattered at tables in the front area. The sand floor was laid out with straw. 3 Chunin gave out drinks at a counter that had been hastily cobbled together. The one thing that had the power to overwhelm someone in here was neither the noise nor the alcohol, but the stench. Naruto could almost feel the old sweat of other people cling to him like a second layer of clothing, and what else there was in this lurid mixture, he didn't want to think about. Passing the bar and closing in on the back of the tent, he came to a place that reminded him of his first C-ranked mission, back when things had been much simpler. To teach them water walking, Kakashi had excavated a square hole which had then been hardened with fire and eventually filled with water. Here, the same principle had been applied, just without the last step. Nothing got a shinobi going like a good fight, and gambling on a fight, of course. In the hole, special rules applied. Only taijutsu, which was a given, and no lick of chakra. Using it meant instant loss. That slowed down the fights, making it a nice viewer spectacle. It also left enough room for it to still look more impressive than anything civilians could do. It also didn't destroy buildings or tents. That was always a plus. Naruto pushed past a few elbows, evaded one pitcher and a small porcelain bottle, before he finally reached the wooden guardrail that had been put together to save drunken shinobi from falling into the fight. For some, this camp was a holiday resort even on their hardest workdays. Coupled with an extremely relaxed supervisor, the result was one genin with a lot of energy to spare and too much time on his hands. Both fighters in the ring had lost their clothes above the waist. The night was too hot for anything else. Naruto saw that Kiba's head was matted with sweat, as was the rest of him. Blood trickled from his lips. He still grinned though, even as his opponent moved in, lashing out with his fist. Kiba took the hit head-on, accepting the damage as a trade for ending the fight quicker. The punch drove Kiba's face to the side just as Kiba buried his own fist in the stomach of his opponent. The shinobi lurched back and buckled. Kiba kept the pressure up and rammed into the man, elbow first. Together they crashed into the wall of the pit. The shinobi tried to kick at Kiba, but it was a feeble attempt. Kiba danced out of reach, then snapped forward, right fist swinging. A second later his opponent lay on the ground. The crowd hollered. Kiba let out an aggressive bark of laughter, throwing his bloody fist in the air. Then he climbed up the wall and out of the pit, picked up his mesh shirt and the rest of his uniform, and sat down on a stool, breathing heavily. As Naruto walked toward him, some people clapped Kiba on the back before turning to the next fight, eager to see some more action. A generous donor reached Kiba a flask from which he took greedy gulps, before shuddering. You fight so damn crude, man. Taking that punch, really? Naruto said. Kiba looked up from his flask, breaking into a cough. Wrong pipe, he croaked, hitting his chest with his palm. Crap, you scared the shit out of me. Do I have to announce myself now? Kiba grinned at him through bloody teeth. Would make it easier for people to run from your hideous face. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Kiba emptied the bottle, then threw it over his shoulder. What are you doing here anyway? I thought you've got no time for this, or we would have met in there already, he said with a nod toward the roaring congregation of shinobi. I need your help. Something came up. Sure. Give me a moment. Kiba craned his neck. A moment later he was standing next to a woman who wore a ribbon denoting her as a supervisor. They exchanged some words, and Kiba came back, whistling while throwing and catching a small pouch. They left the tent after Naruto had explained that he was looking for Sasuke, entering into Suna in a sprint before jumping on the roofs and following Kiba's nose. The silence between them stretched, and Naruto shot Kiba a glance. How are you holding up? Naruto asked. Kiba commented with a flat fine, but then forced a grin on his face. What about you? I heard Danzo plucked you three apart for rescuing some kids. He did. You made quite the waves, and not good ones. I mean, I understand and all, but some here really hate Suna. Kiba snorted. Which is a real problem because guess what, we're in Suna. We're here to stay for a while. They just have to deal with it. I'm not apologizing. The partially destroyed domes went by as they closed in on the western district, the general area Kiba had traced Sasuke's scent to. What about the kids? Asked Kiba. What about them? How are they? I know you've been going in and out of Suna, I can smell it. Only at night though. Figure Danzo's cracking down, and you only have time when it's dark. Naruto sighed. They ran parallel to the shard wall now. They're well, not fine. But it could be worse, I guess. They're living with their grandfather. Mother's dead, father joined the rebels. Not much else to tell. Both want to be shinobi. They told you all that? Nah, haven't spoken to them. Just watching. That's creepy, man. You should at least try talking to them or something. Shove off, Naruto said. I'm just making sure there's no 2-bit Chunin taking revenge on them for getting beat up. You never know with guys like that. You really like those. Kiba stopped. Got him, he said, jumping down into the streets. They cut a few corners, crossed the main thoroughfare of the western district. Quite a lot of eaves hung with red on each side, and found Sasuke leaning against the wheat-colored wall of a 2-story house. Like most buildings in this district, it had been spared destruction. The entrance was roofed by cascading red fabric. Orange light glinted behind smudged window panes. Sasuke wasn't alone. A young woman, quite the beauty as far as Naruto could see it in the dim torchlight, was chatting with, or rather at him. The Uchiha didn't reply to many of her inquiries, but he wasn't looking all that uncomfortable either. His arms were crossed in front of his chest, and he was staring at the opposite building, now and then throwing a glance at the woman. Kiba uttered a low whistle. I'll be damned. So that's his game? Naruto threw another look at the red fabric draped over the building. You think he's? They were slowly walking toward the pair. I think if he wanted to, he'd have used all his wasted opportunities back in Konoha. They look close enough to me, said Naruto. Naruto had said the last word loud enough for Sasuke to notice their approach. Sasuke blinked, leaned toward the woman, and whispered something. The courtesan answered with a quiet laugh. Then she went up to her toes, placed a kiss on his cheek, Sasuke's entire face remaining a stoic mask, and vanished into the house. I expected a lot from you, Naruto said, grinning, but this is beyond my comprehension. Sasuke looked indifferent. Your comprehension doesn't cover much. Once an asshole, always an asshole, Kiba said. You should shower once in a while, Inuzuka. I would, but Waterba here, Kiba thumbed at Naruto, is kind of lazy. Naruto's lips twitched. They had needed 2 seconds to synchronize and turn on him. He chose to save what's left of his dignity, and change the topic away from water. What's up with this, Sasuke? A month alone and I find you here of all places? What would Sakura say? Sasuke shrugged. If she has a problem with it, she can talk to my supervisor. I've been spending the last 2 hours of every day here while he's inside. Naruto was about to ask another question when Kiba interrupted him. I know you two ladies want to share gossip, but didn't you have something important to do, Naruto? Right, Naruto said. I might have found a way to get Team 7 back into business. Sasuke pushed himself away from the wall and came closer. Let's hear it. We need to do some plotting, share some ideas and stuff, said Naruto. Sakura's in the camp, finding her will be easy, I think. Can you come right now, or do you need more time here? I'm free, said Sasuke. Leah went inside to tell him that I'm at Chiyo's. He'll complain and then forget it. Can't fault him, Kiba said. I bet he has other things on his mind right now. Sakura shifted on the ground, trying to find a more relaxing position. She was sitting on a rough carpet in the back of a tent, hidden behind stacks of crates and barrels, leafing through the pages of a worn book she had bought earlier that day. Commerce had begun to normalize in Suna after a few weeks. Once the merchants noticed that Konoha wasn't the robber baron of their nightmares, they lost a good portion of their anxiety. A flame flickered in a vase made of glass near her feet, warming them. Naruto had carved a seal into the bottom of the vase. With chakra it burned all night long, making reading much easier while she hid from her supervisor. Sakura slid to the left, rolling her shoulders, grimacing. No matter which way she contorted her body, there was always some hard edge pressing against her back. Just as there was always sand in places it had no business being in. Indulging in the admittedly rather fascinating tales Wind Country had to offer would be a lot easier if she could do so in her tent. Shikari, that monstrous woman of a supervisor who sported muscles shaming most taijutsu experts, was shoveling more and more work onto Sakura's plate, as though she was in love with Danzo and obeyed him in all terms. Sakura could imagine their conversation perfectly well. Keep Haruno busy, Danzo would say. Yes, Danzo-sama, I will do as you command. No free time shall be given to her, the sodden bitch would then reply, and Danzo would end the whole spiel with an evilly chuckled excellent. Too bad that after getting burned a few times in the first week, Sakura had wised up and started to get away the moment she completed her normal workload. The other shinobi in the group liked her well enough and didn't tell Shikari much, which in turn led to some hide-and-seek games that had taken both of them to every corner of the camp, into the village hell, even outside of Suna. Sometimes Sakura got caught, however. Then she'd have to pull extra shifts on latrine duty, a wonderful job, really. It took a moment to move away from the imagery of murdering Shikari. Relaxing her clenched fists, Sakura concentrated on the book in her lap. The tale was interesting with Naruto as a teammate, stories about Biju always were. The book detailed the history of the oasis of Ike that lay a few hundred miles to the south of Sukuru, and around which, over time, first a community, and then a city had been formed. The oasis was the largest body of water in Wind Country aside from the ocean to the south. The book told that when the wind picked up at night one could hear the palm trees whisper secrets of the gods to each other. Sakura trailed her finger over a faded picture. In the middle of the oasis was an island on which now stood a gorgeous temple of white marble. The legend went that the very first Jinchuriki of the Ichibi had found an unparalleled peace of mind there, mastering the volatile forces of his Biju. Later generations tried the same, but while the island still exuded the same calmness as before, all the other Jinchuriki that traveled there failed in their endeavor. They could not control the power of the Ichibi, ultimately dying and setting the Biju free. This went on until Suna decided that the oasis had lost its power. They imprisoned Bunpaku, the Ichibi's Jinchuriki of that time, inside the sweeping mountains with naught but a tea kettle. Transfixed by the book, Sakura hurried to the next page. Then noise from outside the tent jerked her out of her trance. She extinguished the flame in her vase and listened. For most of the shinobi stationed in Suna, this tent was off-limits. Someone was taking great pains in sneaking inside just now, though. She pressed herself against the stack behind her, trying to peer through the gap between a crate and a barrel. You sure she's here? He's an Inuzuka, moron. Of course she's here. See? Even Uchiha says that I'm never wrong. That's not what I... One by one the familiar voices reached her ears. Sakura pinched the bridge of her nose and flicked her hand. The light in the vase went on again. If that's your idea of a stealthy entrance, I have to disappoint you, she said, waving from behind the crates. I told you she's here, Kiba said. As all three hurried over to her, she rolled out a utility scroll, placed the book in the circle in the middle of it, and carefully sealed it with a slight application of chakra. With those three around, the space became cramped, and she didn't want to risk the fragile book. Be a bit quieter, will you? She said, glancing first at their clueless faces and surmising that stealth hadn't been their primary concern, and then at the entrance where the tent flap was stirring in the wind. What are you doing here? Moron's got a plan, Sasuke said. I dare you to call me that again. Moro. Stop it, you two, she said with vehemence, grabbing one shoulder each and squeezing hard. They quieted down, but beside them Kiba exploded in a laugh, which Sakura's glare quelled soon enough as well. If we get caught, this is your fault, she said, shaking her head. Now, what's going on? Naruto said. Haruno! Came a call from outside the tent. The voice was laced with distaste, and Sakura resolved to kill them later for this. Now she had to react quickly though, or all three of them would get into serious trouble for entering a restricted area. Her hands formed seals, and within a split second a number of genjutsu concealed the presence of their little group. It wasn't complete invisibility like Jiraiya-sensei had showed her once, but it was a distortion of the senses to such a degree that even if you were standing in front of a person they wouldn't notice you. Haruno, I know you're in here, Shikari called. I've heard your voice just now. Come out. Sakura cursed inwardly as she watched that muscle-laden woman stomp about the tent like a gorilla with too much testosterone. I know you're here, Shikari repeated in a whisper, and I'll make you come out if you don't show yourself. When the kunoichi formed the seal to dispel genjutsu, Sakura's heart jumped to her throat. She reacted, and with far too little time manipulated the illusions so they still applied to her friends, but excluded herself. It was a spur-of-the-moment modification, and she really hoped it worked. Gulping, Sakura stepped forward. Please. I'll train extra hard if this worked, I promise. I knew you'd come out, Shikari said. Yeah, well, here I am. Sakura didn't bother to keep the annoyance out of her voice. You're a real piece of work, Haruno, but don't worry, sooner or later you'll do as told. Sakura motioned behind her back for the others to leave the tent. And how will you do that? Go to Danzo? That's Danzo-sama to you, Haruno. And yes, he'll set you straight. Sakura grinned despite herself. Yes, please, report me, she said. I'm sure Danzo will be thrilled to hear how well you managed me. He seems an okay guy. I bet he accepts failure as part of being human. Her supervisor was silent for a moment, and Sakura saw Naruto sign that they would be waiting near the hole for her. Then the three left the tent, leaving her alone with that tremendous mountain of a woman. Be careful, Haruno, Shikari said, your glib attitude won't always save you. It's too late now to bother with you, but tomorrow is coming. We'll see who's laughing when you're shoveling shit from morning to evening. Is that all? Shikari grunted, and Sakura took that as her dismissal and went past the woman and out of the tent. Sasuke was leaning against a post in the shadow of a tent, listening to Naruto's whispered oaths about Danzo. They were behind the hole, waiting for Sakura to shake off her supervisor. He eyed the sky. There had been no clouds for days, and the stars were quite bright. From inside the tent came a surge of voices, loud, whiny, male, boisterous, aggressive, female, happy, and pathetic. After a while he stopped differentiating them and the voices fused to a unified garble again. Once I'm Hokage, I'll boot his ass in the most humiliating way possible, Naruto said. He'll have forgotten the names of his grandchildren when I'm through with him. You think Danzo has grandchildren? Naruto paused his pacing and smacked the top of a crate with his flat palm, hard. I didn't think of that. Evidently. I'll still kick his ass once I got the hat. If he's still alive by then, Sasuke said. He was content to let Naruto keep raving. The voice, if not always the content, was soothing in a sense. Back when they had brought him to Boki-toshi, it had often enough broken through the shroud clinging to his mind, while he had seesawed between consciousness, and the all-pervading red the Kyuubi had left him. Behind them, the hole exploded in a cacophony of shouts. Then Sakura came jogging around the corner ahead, each step sending up a light flutter of sand. No chakra running through her soles then. Sasuke would tell her later. The exercise wasn't necessary for her chakra control, but it increased mobility in the desert and made hiding tracks easier. Where's Kiba? Sakura asked, coming to a stop. Hole, Naruto said. Fighting, drinking, the works. The hollering of the crowd penetrated the fabric of the hole's backside with ease. It grew to a dizzying level, the current fight in its last stages, the roar now drowning out Team 7 as they talked, and they moved away as it swelled like a balloon and then was suddenly punctured by a scream, the balloon deflating abruptly, the hole growing quiet. Is Kiba all right? Sakura asked, looking over her shoulder at the tent. Probably not, Naruto said. It's his way to cope, I guess? Can't say much about that. Sasuke walked beside his teammates, saying nothing. He didn't much like the Inuzuka, but he had been there when Kiba had laid Akamaru on a pyre back in Konoha, howling like a dog the whole time, miserable as he put the torch to the oil and watched the pyramid of straw light up in an angry orange. He had been there, staring at the flames and remembering all the pyres that had once been built for the Uchiha, and the memory, far too vivid still, left him in agreement with Naruto. No one had any right to say how Kiba should cope. He'll make it, Sasuke said. But we've got our own problems to deal with. He lowered his voice. I'm not planning anything in this camp as long as there's a chance of Danzo or his people hearing us. Shard Wall, then? Naruto asked. It's becoming too popular, Sakura said. Remember last week? Naruto grinned. You mean the pair having? Yes, them. They walked slowly, indecision keeping them back. They had left the hole far away enough though, and the rumbling was dull now. Sasuke felt the onset of hunger form in his stomach and was about to steer them carefully toward a stall, when he noticed Naruto glance at him and Sakura. Why not Sasuke's brothel? He's got some contacts in the city. Hunger forgotten, Sasuke struggled with a brief uprising of conflicting emotions on whether to strangle or stab Naruto. It's not my brothel. I'm following orders. You're guarding a brothel? Asked Sakura, mad hilarity swirling behind her eyes. Sasuke didn't deign that question with an answer, and she was quick to continue, an honest-to-God brothel? A laugh escaped her. I never thought you'd be the one Jiraiya-sensei's lessons would impact the most. And it only took him, 1 month? That's actually impressive, I have to say. HN. Just remember to be careful, Naruto said. You don't want things to get even more complicated. I'm standing guard. Naruto nodded sagely. For now you are, but I doubt even you, mightiest of Uchiha, can resist temptation forever. Won't your supervisor still be there? Can we even use it? Sakura asked. Shift's been over for a while now, Sasuke said. Maybe he left already. It's worth a try, Naruto said, stretching his arms, yawning. They made their way out of camp and into Suna, keeping to the back alleys as they navigated the village. Strewn all over Suna were the lights of moving patrols, more at night than day, and as slovenly as the army at times appeared to Sasuke, he couldn't deny their overbearing presence on the streets. Danzo's mistrust ran far and deep, and leaving the conquered unobserved wasn't a state he could abide. Through a small alley they reached the back entrance of the brothel, draped with red from every angle, like so many houses in Suna, definitely far more than Sasuke had ever noticed in Konoha or Tanyu. Sasuke rapped twice, and the door opened a few inches, a shaft of light falling on them through the small gap. Leah smiled at them, dimples showing, eyes a dark brown, hair in a loose bun, kimono slightly askew. Sasuke-sama, she said, you're back. Is he still in? Sasuke asked. He's been drinking all evening. I don't think he'll stop anytime soon, I'm sorry. Leah looked curiously at Naruto and Sakura. Do you and your friends still want to come in? You could evade him somehow, I'm sure. Not today, Sasuke said. Not as long as he's in there. Leah sighed in disappointment, shooting Sasuke a look that made him acutely aware of his teammates still standing behind him. Then she nodded at all three of them, bowed gracefully, her kimono showing a fair amount of skin, and went back inside. Sasuke turned, and before the light from the closing door vanished he saw the infuriating grin on Naruto's face. The urge to strangle him presently outweighed the stabbing. The latter was too quick and painless. Sakura coughed. Well, seems like that avenue's closed, Sasuke-sama. Have you actually been in? Asked Naruto. A few times, but... Just to stay guard, of course, I get you, Naruto said. They walked a few paces away from the brothel, keeping well away from the patrols. When Danzo had separated them with his flimsy excuse, he probably hadn't planned on them reuniting, even during their free time. It wasn't a given that if they were seen, the patrols would tell on them, or even know about informing Danzo, but Team 7 had become a bit more careful with tempting fate in the last months. We can't plan in the camp, Naruto said, pacing up and down. Shard Wall's too popular, and the brothel is a no-go too. There must be a place. Naruto's voice ebbed away, and for a moment he stood staring at nothing at all. Then he turned to Sasuke. Aren't you meeting with that old gal all the time? Chiko? Chio, corrected Sasuke. What's up with that anyway? Isn't she a Sunanin? Naruto said. Retired. So what? That's still dangerous. Sasuke shrugged. We have an agreement. That's beside the point, Sakura said. It's far too late already. We can't just barge in an old lady's home and occupy it. We could, Sasuke said. I've to go there anyway. She's still awake. How do you know? Sakura asked. I simply do. And starting on the way to Chio's house, Sasuke took quite some pleasure in their frustration at his answer. Reaching the place took a lot longer than during the day though, as avoiding Konoha uniforms slowed things to an irritating degree. That they had to cross the village all the way up north didn't make it easier. The house was in the most northern part of Suna, behind even the Kazekage's former official tower, and was close enough to the mountains that one slide would bury it completely. They walked through the low archway in the wall and entered into the courtyard that preceded the house. Chio was still awake, looking as grouchy as every other day Sasuke had met her. She sat on the edge of a dried-out stone fountain, taking drags from a long-stemmed pipe. Seeing them coming, Chio puffed a last time, then laid the pipe away, narrowing her eyes. "You again, brat? Hounding me at night now, are ye?" The lamp sitting on the edge beside her chased shadows across her leathery face. "Find a home and leave me alone, boy. HN. We need some space." Sasuke was sure that would suffice, but Sakura stepped forward and inclined her head politely. "What he means to say, Chio-san, right? Is that we'd be grateful if we could stay for a moment." Chio kept her eyes locked on Sasuke, lips pulling into a dry grin. "Who's the girl, brat? She's too polite for you." Naruto laughed, and Chio's finger twitched in response. A second later, Naruto, swept off his feet, was lying on the floor. "Quiet down, will you, boy? My brother's sleeping in there if he's not dead already." The last part was murmured to herself. "Got it," Naruto said, climbing to his feet, then whispering to Sakura, "Grandma's short a few marbles." Sasuke was sure Chio had heard it, but she left the blonde alone. She slid from the fountain, carefully collecting her lamp and her pipe, before shambling past them. "I'm going to sleep. You can have the yard, brat, but keep the noisy one under control, hear me? No noise! Or I'll come back out, and you'll be sorry." HN. When Chio was just about to enter the house, Sasuke fished a scroll out of his uniform and threw it at her back. It was caught in the air behind her, as if held by invisible strings, and she moved inside with it, never acknowledging that it had been thrown at all. Sasuke led his teammates to a corner of the yard from where they had a good view on the house and the archway to the street. "You trust that lady?" asked Naruto, plopping down on the ground. "She's a retired Chunin." Sakura's hands immediately formed the seal. Privacy genjutsu sprang up around them. Sasuke counted them 3 in all for sound, sight, and smell. Not bad. Sakura would need to keep up the hand seal to sustain them all, but that she could talk coherently while doing so spoke volumes. "What's with the scroll?" Naruto said. Sasuke shook his head. In a few hours the sun would rise. They didn't have much time anymore if they wanted to get anything done. "I'll tell you later," he said. "Now, what have you got that's worth all this trouble?" And as Naruto began to tell them, Sasuke really hoped that it was worth it. Not that he disliked the company, but he was tired and hungry, and if Naruto had led them on this merry trip for nothing, he'd really strangle him. Kakashi sat upright in his hospital bed, eyeing the little squares of moonlight entering through the shutters. He clenched and unclenched his fists and, after assuring himself of their working condition, he activated his Sharingan, before letting it fade out again. The nurses had been helpful during the last month, filling him in on what happened in and around Konoha. They wove a tapestry of information that told him his peers Asuma, Guy, Kurenai, even Tenzo were fighting with the Sandaime, either against Kusa, Oto, IWA, or all of them together. The tapestry, for all its detail, lacked 3 important threads, however, leaving a gaping hole in its middle. Team 7 was in Suna with Danzo. That much was common knowledge, but that wasn't the information he sought. In the sparse times Tsunade visited him to monitor his progress, he had asked her about them, and she would look at him, shake her head, eyes full of the information he wanted but lips sealed tight. Why though? He had thought hard on it, trying to connect the dots and ultimately coming to no conclusion. He was an elite Jonin, had served as ANBU and personal guard to the Hokage, had been tasked with training the most volatile team Konoha had to offer. He had a level of clearance that was only dwarfed by the Hokage himself, the Sannin, the advisors, and maybe Shikaku. Why wasn't he told? It frustrated him, more than he thought possible. But not anymore. He had tried following the official channels and that had yielded no results at all. He didn't understand why Tsunade kept the information from him, but he knew that he needed them, and that this need went far beyond idle curiosity. What drove him wasn't easy to put into words. Guilt, perhaps, but that too was insufficient to describe it. One after another Kakashi took off the bandages around his head, placing them on the table beside his bed. He slipped out of the hospital wear and into the casual blue and black garb Hiruzen had brought him. No vest for now. He'd only get that one back at the requisition office. At least they had left him his headband. He slanted his forehead protector across his face, glancing at the windows. They had been equipped with a special fuinjutsu that activated at night, ostensibly for the protection of the patients. Should he open them, one of the night shift nurses would receive an alarm. He turned away. Leaving through them wasn't impossible, and if the situation were less dire he might go through the trouble, but not tonight. He would take the direct route and deal with trouble as it arose. He hadn't returned to old form quite yet, but the strength at his disposal should suffice to get the information he needed. The hallways were lit by garish fluorescent lights, one more reason to hate hospitals, and Kakashi listened for noise as he stepped out of his room, closed the door, and began walking through the hospital. There were a few hushed voices farther ahead, but they came from the nurse station and didn't concern him. He took a corner, evading the nurses. He jolted when he heard the sudden onset of sprinkling water. He looked to the side. The noise came from the room with the communal showers. Pulse slowing, he went on, thinking, who the hell showers this late? And had almost made it to the atrium when he heard the clicking of heels behind him. Looking to his right, he found a door. He seized the knob and turned. It was locked. He threw the door a frustrated look. Judging from the distance of the heels, he didn't have the time to break the lock. At least the footfall sounded differently than Tsunade's or Shizen's. He had learned to identify them quickly. Kakashi turned, lifting his forehead protector. He didn't want to use it on someone from Konoha, but the circumstances left him no choice. Today he would learn what his team did, and there was nothing that would stop him. He waited until the nurse rounded the corner and came into sight, then he activated his Sharingan. Her mouth opened either to scream or shout in admonishment, he couldn't tell, but his genjutsu was faster. A second later the nurse led him through the corridors, toward an exit reserved for employees, bypassing the atrium completely. Once they were outside, he modified the illusion. The nurse went back to do her rounds. Tomorrow she would have forgotten all of this. Kakashi took a minute to bask in the feeling of freedom that accompanied leaving the hospital. He listened to the rustling leaves from above, took in the bark of a dog some distance away. Then he moved away from the building and, taking many detours, avoided the main roads and his fellow shinobi at every turn. It felt odd sneaking around in his own village. Reaching the Hokage Tower only made him more conscious of that. This time of night only 2 guards stood in his way. They were staking out the usual entrance points, and one of them routinely vanished to patrol the insides before rejoining his partner. Kakashi waited until the woman went inside, then threw a bell in a high arc toward a trash can a few yards away. As the bell hit the bin with a chime, Kakashi sucked in his breath, remembering that silent nights had a way of amplifying every sound. The Chunin checked out the noise and Kakashi slipped into the tower, dampening his chakra. He climbed the stairs to the office floor when the second guard crossed his path. A quick look with his Sharingan and the woman was well on her way. The pang of guilt fading, he surmounted the last stretch of his journey. The door to the Hokage's office was closed. From his time with Minato-sensei he knew that they were heavily protected. The moment Kakashi had become his child's guard though, Minato-sensei had shown him how to access the office without alerting anyone. Today would be the first time he'd use that knowledge. He couldn't help but wonder if his sensei would approve of it. A melancholic grin tugged at his lips. The Yandame's trust in him had been absolute, and years after the man had died Kakashi still didn't understand why. Ridding himself of these thoughts, Kakashi went 5 paces to the right of the door and put his palm on a precise location in the wall. Chakra surged through his hand. The door opened with a soft click. He entered quickly. Better get this over with as fast as possible. Inside the dark office, Kakashi didn't linger. He went over to the door that led into the archive room. The seal to circumvent the protections was located at the bottom of the wall. Kakashi crouched, searching for the little mark that would let him know where to direct his chakra. His fingers had just grazed a little bump when black scribbles exploded outward from the wall, stretching through the office, crawling alongside the wall, the ceiling, the floor. They lit up a glaring blue. He felt the room seal itself. Then the spectacle of light died down, and the lights overhead turned on. Kakashi closed his eyes. Sighing, he rose from his crouch and turned around. Tsunade stood opposite of him, her expression stern, and Kakashi resisted the impulse to think on where he must have slipped up. "Tsunade-sama," he said. "I had hoped to avoid this." "I really did," he thought. "But I'm not apologizing. Not when I don't know anything about them and they might be in danger and I don't know what they did and you won't answer anything about them." "I can believe that," Tsunade said, grinning humorlessly. "What would you do if you had all the information you're looking for?" The image of his team flickered through his mind, beaten and bloodied, still standing and defiant though. "I'd want to see them," he said. "As soon as possible. I'd want to. There's a lot I can still teach them." There was a moment of silence. Then Tsunade moved. Her fist rushed at his head. He barely got away in time. He tried to say something, but Tsunade was on him. He ducked under another punch that was entirely too close, staggering over to the couch in the corner. She lashed out again, fist flying in a wide arc. He plucked a pillow from the couch, deflecting her punch to the side, the pillow exploding in a burst of fabric and stuffing. "What are you doing?" he called out, rolling away from a kick, seeing her heel leave a fist-sized hole in the ground. Another pillow fell to the ground in pieces, and he vaulted over the desk nearby, Tsunade following, each reckless move to get away driving pain up his spine, setting his limbs on fire. Then they were back at their starting positions, his breath running ragged, spit gathering in his mouth. "I know you, Kakashi," Tsunade said, walking toward him, right wrist rotating lazily. "No matter what I say, you try to reach them immediately. Comrades, right? That's the kind of person you are." Kakashi's lungs burned far too much to offer a reply to her glowing character assessment of him. Then she came at him again, low this time, and Kakashi tried to weave away, relying on his Sharingan to avoid her punches. One after another they landed, each hit rousing his bones to rebellion against the abuse dished out. Her fist found his stomach at last. He buckled, sinking against the wall at his back, the spittle in his mouth landing on the carpet. Tsunade bent down until their heads were close and he felt her warm breath on his face. He had expected it to reek of alcohol, but she was sober. "This is the strength you want to show them? What you want to teach them?" Her quiet laugh vibrated in his bones. "Even if you were completely healthy, which you aren't, I'd still win against you." She took him by the scruff of his shirt and pushed him forcefully against the wall. Earlier she had punched his Sharingan swollen shut, so he glared at her with the normal eye that remained functional. "You've made your point." Tsunade loosened her grip, letting him slide down the wall. "Have I really?" she said, leaning against the desk, letting her words linger, voice low. "What can you offer them right now?" Kakashi shifted on the floor, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. He wanted to lash out at Tsunade, if only with words. The vastly different quality of her voice held him back though. He closed his eyes, ignored the pain, and conjured for the umpteenth time the image of his team in his mind. He pictured himself beside them, teaching, offering advice, making them run through hellish exercises. Their complaints would be exquisite. But he wasn't satisfied with that alone. He couldn't be. So, what could he offer them? That's what Tsunade had asked him, and he found that beyond his company, which was a questionable feature in itself, there wasn't much, not really. Could he be content with being just a teacher? They were his students, but it had never been his goal for them to remain as such. He had always striven to make them equals, even if his means might have been extreme. Would they even need a teacher now? Or did the challenges they'd have to face demand something else entirely? Kakashi opened his eyes and glanced at the woman who had used him as a punching bag. She was still leaning against the desk, looking down at him with inscrutable eyes. Kakashi reclined his head, feeling the wall behind pulse with a coldness he welcomed. His company was all he had to offer them at the moment. And that, he realized, was worth next to nothing in this world. At least not with how he was right now. Tsunade broke the silence first. "I will tell you what they did, Kakashi," she said. His eyes widened. She crouched beside his battered body, hands glowing green as she began to heal him. "But I won't let you leave," she said, "not like this." Her voice was much gentler now, soothing. "I read the reports, you know? I healed them, and I was at every debriefing they had over the months." Her words left him bitter for a moment. There was so much he had missed out on. So much he should know. "Your kids went through hell and back for you, Kakashi," she continued, almost wistful. "They did something even Sarutobi-sensei thought impossible." She paused, staring right at him. "I won't let you dishonor that sacrifice, that incredible achievement, by leaving this place half-assed and without a plan. They deserve better than that." Kakashi sat up gingerly. He couldn't deny that learning his team had convinced even her of their worth made a strange feeling form in his gut. Calmer now, and with the pounding in his head lessening, he asked, "What do you have in mind?" Tsunade went over to a cabinet at the far side of the room, returning with 2 porcelain bottles. She handed Kakashi 1 bottle, then sunk down the wall herself, joining him on the floor. "First we drink and I'll tell you what your brats did," she said, taking a large gulp. "Then you will go back to the hospital, where you'll lie in your bed and thank every deity from Jashin to Amaterasu that they're still alive after the stunts they pulled." The sake burned pleasantly in his throat. Kakashi's lips twitched. "I will." "Of course you will," Tsunade said. "Because I said so." There was a measure of truth to that, Kakashi acknowledged. His still lightly throbbing wounds could attest to that. She was a rather assertive woman. "What happens once I'm fully healed?" he asked. Tsunade was silent for a moment, rolling the bottleneck between her thumb and index finger. Then she glanced at him. There was something heavy in that gaze. Say, Kakashi, she said, are you satisfied with how strong you were before all this? Until I met them, yes, he said. After that? Not so much. Tsunade took another gulp. Good. MHH? I'm not just a medic Nin, she gave as way of explanation, and it's time that I get back to my old strength, especially with all that's happening right now. The last part was murmured more to herself than to him, he felt. Are you proposing? I am, she said, emptying the bottle. Okay, he replied. And sitting amidst destruction, next to the strongest woman in Fire Country, maybe even the elemental nations, Kakashi found that he didn't have it in him to disagree. He drank his sake, felt his battered body, and wearily grinned at the ceiling. Their methods of convincing someone were roughly the same, after all. Strange to be on the receiving end for once. In the following morning, different shades of violet stretched in stripes across the horizon. Far to the south, clouds were lazily drifting forward to shake hands with the sun. Naruto climbed out of his tent, wiping the sleep out of his eyes. He fixed the sky with a sullen glare, then went over to a nearby barrel, splashing his face with cold water. The night had been far too long, and Danzo rose notoriously early, expecting the same from his aides. Naruto slipped into his vest and made for the command tent, breaking a ration bar in two, chewing the first half of the emergency snack. Officially it was supposed to taste like raspberry, which made the development department in Konoha consist either of idiots, liars, or both. None of the food distribution centers in the camp opened earlier than an hour from now though, and the blue-roofed bakeries, vendors and butcheries in the village were too far away to reach in time. Chugging water from a canteen, Naruto washed down the last half of the dry bar just as he rounded the corner, and found Danzo standing ramrod straight, hands resting on the head of his cane. Uzumaki, Danzo said. The clipped nod and gruff voice blasted away any sleepiness still residing in Naruto. They met the first time now since the debacle last evening, and the risk of latrine duty or something worse wasn't that far-fetched. Morning, Naruto said, falling half a step behind Danzo as they began crossing the camp toward the advisor's tent. A month and you still lack manners. I did not expect you to be this obstinate. Good morning, sir, Naruto said. The correction going unacknowledged by Danzo, they passed the rows of medical tents, no further bit at conversation coming up from either of them. It was really much too early in the morning. There wasn't a soul awake, aside from the few night shift guards that were always up, and Naruto spent the way to Shurin thinking of an animal that might fit a constantly discontent man like Danzo. A narwhal maybe? He could use the tusk as a walking aid, and in the right circumstances it could spear an enemy too. Near the hole, Danzo slowed and took measuring looks into a row of barrels. Have you kept up with your other duties, Uzumaki? Playing the tap for everyone in a radius of 2 miles? I did when I had the time, yes, Naruto said, thinking, narwhals are far too beautiful for a stinking old man like you. Go and drown in that barrel. Danzo circled the cluster of barrels, now and then supplementing his inspection with a deep tone rising from his chest. Naruto felt his jaw twitch. He counted to 10 in his head, trying to appear nonchalant. Counting worked better than deep breathing. Danzo would notice the latter, and Naruto didn't want to give him that satisfaction. I heard you acquired a title from your peers, Danzo said, face revealing nothing but indifference to the world as they resumed walking. This is not unusual in times of war. When a shinobi has proven himself to be an expert, his comrades are quick to honor him. An old tradition that has spawned many notable and feared names. Nodding tightly, Naruto kept walking beside him, holding back the insults he'd like to fling. In 2 words, the yellow flash reminded of immeasurable strength, 3 syllables, and a title like the professor conveyed dignity and wisdom far across the borders of Fire Country. Waterba, in comparison, told the story of menial duty. As the saying went right now, 1 barrel a day kept the thirst well away. Still, Danzo really liked pushing buttons today, and gratitude welled up inside Naruto when Shurin's red tent came into view. In the battle of wits between Danzo and Shurin, the former would hopefully have his hands full. The startling emergence of Danzo's disfigured sense of humor threw Naruto more off his game than he'd like to admit. He liked the silent Danzo better. Shurin's tent tripled every other tent around it in size. He rested on a chair in front of it, periodically reaching into a bowl of figs while watching his entourage roll up the red cloth and dismantle the wooden posts, loading them onto carts. To the side of them, tied to a railing, a congregation of horses, bay-colored, clean-limbed and with muscular flanks, tugged at their bridles. 5 soldiers were guarding Shurin. Lightly armored, only leather and mesh. Ornamented spears for decoration. The swords at their hips were real though, leather handles worn down by age and use. In all, he would be able to kill them in about 15 seconds if it came to it. Shurin showed arrogance rivaling commons, but asking for protection from Konoha had been the right choice. Shurindano, Danzo said, as they neared. Shurin rose from his chair, leaving the figs alone. Naruto felt a brief surge of envy at the food. He contemplated stealing a bunch, but with Danzo close by decided against it. I assume everything is in order? Shurin's eyes never strayed from Danzo as he washed his hands in a bowl a servant held up for him. The daimyo is not a man to be left waiting, after all. I am sure he is anxious to hear my report. You can proceed as planned, Danzo said. Toweling his hands, Shurin turned to his entourage, telling them to hurry up and meet him at the camp's southern exit once they had finished packing. Then he uttered a sharp whistle, and his guard joined him on his way to the gate. Let me inspect the team then that you believe to be sufficiently skilled to protect me. They are waiting and able to set out whenever you are ready, Danzo said, leading the way. Naruto trailed behind the group, shooting a big, inviting killer of a smile at every guard that warily glanced at him, laughing inside when they jerked around, facing forward again, eyes narrow and expression severe, their spears bopping up and down with each step. As they closed in on the gate, his amusement about the guard's behavior waned, and his pulse quickened. He clenched and unclenched his fist, piling on positive thoughts about how good life would become once there was some distance between him and Danzo. The plan couldn't go wrong. It was, after all, the brainchild of Team 7 and included all the right ingredients for success: simplicity, unerring logic, and a light touch of insanity. At the gate, Danzo introduced the team of Chunin that would accompany Shurin, and Naruto surveyed them critically. They were fit and held themselves rigid, shoulders straight, eyes on their protection detail, vests immaculate. Nothing else unusual. Chakra capacity, as far as he could sense, normal for the rank. Lightness entered Naruto's chest. This was perfect. No way in hell Team 7 wouldn't be able to top that. Because if one thing stood out from yesterday's discussion between Danzo and Shurin, it was the latter's special requirements. The first try to get Team 7 involved had failed because of prioritizing the wrong way. Being geographically savvy in this country came only as a distant second to Shurin's first, and to him most important demand, that the team escorting him could pound attackers to Kingdom Come. That's all there was to it. The advisor feared for his life, rightly so, and in the heat of the moment, seeing the chance present itself, Naruto hadn't thought clearly on how to reel him in. Naruto kept his foot from jittering against the ground, eyes peeled. This had to be perfect. Presently Shurin was pacing up and down the line of Chunin, as though looking for spots of dirt that would justify asking for a second team. At length, turning back to Danzo, he sighed and said, "That will be acceptable, Dan." The ear-stabbing noise of an explosion swallowed his sentence. His guards drew their swords, but Naruto was faster. Earth vibrating with the force of a second explosion, he positioned himself in front of the advisor, kunai ready. Please stay down until the area is safe again, Shurindano. Is the camp under attack? Shurin asked, and when Naruto glanced down he saw the advisor blink rapidly, lips trembling, eyes flitting left to right, taking in everything around him, looking for an escape. One could think he's got an eyeful of Danzo's junk. A third explosion rocked the desert before them, the ground vibrating, a fountain of sand shooting up in a massive spray. Shurin's robes were fluttering in the wind from the blast, and straining his eyes, Naruto kept his lips pressed tight to avoid grinning as he saw Sasuke and Sakura go at it. Ah, Naruto said, relaxing his posture, ignoring Danzo's shrewd look. I'm deeply sorry, Shurindano. Sasuke shot a fireball the size of the Hokage Tower at Sakura, the heat from the carpet of fire blanketing Naruto even this far away. Naruto stowed his kunai in the holster at his leg. I forgot that my teammates use the desert to spar from time to time. There's no place in the camp for them to fully utilize their techniques. Responding to the rolling front of fire heading straight at her, Sakura pressed her hands on the sand. Moments later she shot up, footing secure on a stone pillar exploding from the ground. A second pillar matched the first. Sakura used it as a stepping stone over the flames and towards Sasuke, hurling a row of exploding tags at him, before rocketing down in his direction herself. Again, my apologies, Naruto said, bowing to Shurin. I'll stop them immediately. A last glance at the calculating glint that was conquering the fear in Shurin's eyes, then Naruto was off, leaping toward his teammates. Stop it! Sakura and Sasuke were embroiled in a close-up fight, their bodies one violent flow of rhythmic action. Naruto landed between them, deflecting their attacks away from each other. Is he buying it? Sakura mouthed as she attempted to sweep Naruto off his feet. Yup, Naruto mouthed back, using Sasuke's shoulder as a platform to vault over them. Sasuke and Sakura slowed down imperceptibly, and in a short but brutal maneuver Naruto brought both of them to heel, shouting, "Get a grip, you two!" They stopped short, rising from the ground as if returning from a hazy place, following him in a docile fashion to the group waiting at the gate. Unsurprisingly, Danzo's expression showed that he had cottoned on to their little act, even though he displayed no overt signs of displeasure. It was all in how his eyes never left them. In contrast, Shuren couldn't quite decide whom to look at, Team 7 or the Chunin supposed to protect him. Phase 1, Success. They took up position in front of Shuren, Sasuke and Sakura bowing in deference, the advisor gathering his bearings. "We are very sorry for this, Shuren-sama," Sakura said. "It wasn't our intention to scare you." "Easy to get lost in fighting," Sasuke said, sounding demure almost. "My apologies for this transgression." Shuren stared down at them. "What are your names, shinobi?" "Hareno Sakura." "Uchiha Sasuke." The last name evoked a momentary widening of Shuren's eyes and a closed-lipped smile. Phase 2, Success. "The Uchiha from Konoha, I presume?" When Sasuke nodded, Shuren addressed Naruto. "And they're your teammates?" "They are," Naruto said, offering a quick salute. "Team 7, trained by Hatake Kakashi and Jiraiya of the Sannin. Again, I am very sorry for this." No matter, Shuren said. "Nothing came off it in the end." Turning to Danzo, "It appears as though I have to ask for a slight change of our original plans. I will, of course, restrict myself to one team as agreed, but I'd rather it be these esteemed shinobi." Danzo, who had observed the spectacle in silence so far, spoke tilting his head, voiced the same cadence as always. "Are you quite sure? They are Chunin as well, but they lack the experience of the team I selected." "Can you do the same?" Shuren asked, looking at the team of Chunin. They exchanged unsure looks, and before any of them could speak, Shuren took that as his answer, green robes sweeping wide as he turned back to Danzo. "I think I will be fine with Team 7. After a moment of contemplation, Danzo said, "If that is your wish, I will agree to it. Their duties in the camp were of importance, however. I will require the rest of the day for them to work in their replacements. Can you delay your journey until tomorrow?" Shuren nodded emphatically, and Naruto choked down his laughter. Not the time, he told himself. Though apparently making the daimyo wait wasn't as much of an éclat anymore. "If it is truly necessary," Shuren said, "I will wait. There is nothing quite as important as a good protection detail, would you not agree?" "Just so," Danzo said, casting a heavy look at Naruto. "Team 7, you are dismissed. You know what you have to do." The command's same old inflection sent a momentary shiver crawling down Naruto's spine, clouding the sense of achievement with the knowledge of trouble soon to come. Still, they had done it. Shuren would take them to Sakura, away from Danzo. They could deal with the repercussions when they returned. Danzo might have calmed down by then, and maybe Gigi might have even won the war already. Once they were through the gate and out of sight, Naruto looked at Sasuke and Sakura, allowing an easy smile to spread on his face. Then they crossed paths with Shuren's entourage, who had saddled the horses, laden the carts and the ornery carriage, and were on their way to the gate. Poor Sods would have to put up the tent again and repeat all this a second time tomorrow. Entering the command tent, Sasuke found it empty save Kotetsu, who was sitting bowed over a small table in the corner, an oil lamp hanging from a post shining light on a stack of scrolls, one lying unfurled in front of him. The array of maps in the middle of the room were illuminated by the two braziers next to them, fired up, reeling off tendrils of smoke. When Team 7 entered, Kotetsu held up a hand for them to be quiet. He wrote out the last line of kanji, scattered sand over